Alright, here's a quick look at the sort of the stars thingy. For the most part, it was kind of released as an unfinished game, to be honest. They added some updates along with it, but like things like the cinematics button was never really implemented. It's been there for a while. Apparently I looked it up. I figured maybe I just have to unlock the cinematics by doing missions or skirmishes or something. But no, it doesn't even include the intro cinematic or nothing like that. It's just a button that doesn't work. When you go to create game, scenarios are disabled because they originally had scenarios planned. They had the director there, and then he ended up leaving the game, and then no one else I guess they just abandoned it. So scenario tab is there, but it's grayed out, and unless they added an update soon, I doubt it'll ever be added. Maybe since the pit increased the popularity of Sword of the Stars, there might be, but this game was released quite a while ago, at least a couple years ago, I think. So the fact that anything's there that's not there at this point, it probably won't be added in the future. The Loa Collective, which I think is the AI, I'm not entirely sure. But you have the Suul'ka Horde, the Marigi, you have the Zul Alliance, Tarkesian Empire, Hyver Imperium, and the Soul Force. And these are just random little fight things. Nothing too crazy. I also noticed the encyclopedia basically has majority of the information we know from the previous one. Kind of like the first game's like big wall of text showing you what's going on. Because this is kind of like ass backwards the way the interface is. You have Admiral's base characteristics, and you just have Admiral unit in the game. There's nothing really crazy about it. It just tells you like there's like the average age of the units when they're an Admiral. Retirement, they retire, like that's their years of retirement. If Lear lived for so fucking long, 400 years. That's the retirement age, is 400. Human is 65, to give you an idea. Lear will live much longer. Special characteristics, and this is just like what their beliefs are in. Got admirals die. Lear apparently do not die. Minimum age to death by species. I guess there's no on record death of a Lear yet. But Morigi die at 300 years, human at 90. And there's that. Admirals. It's just basically units, and I think you could like have games last like multiple generations, kind of like Argarest. So you can like do different admirals and shit, I'm guessing. We got factions. We got the Hyver Imperium. Oh god, and then we back to admirals. As you can see, it's like factions, Hyver Imperium. Hyver species, the Monarch. They have their own like special like people. Organization. Kind of like just to stick with the other. I'm just gonna go over this real quick, but for the most part I'm not too worried about it, because the previous game gives you a quick recap and there's not too much of Sword of the Stars main game lore in the pit. I believe it's mainly what's happening in the pit itself through little messages. The lore that gives you a general idea is just the overlook of the species. We got Lear and Alliance. It's just crazy stuff. I want to see if there's any Alliance combat art, but there's Alliance. We have that. Look at Saucepedia. Now are the ships so I can see? That's nothing there. You got cruisers. Nothing to see there. Sections, it's empty. It's just like half made or something. I'm not really bothered reading through it. We have the races. There's nothing for Elder. We have the hives. So then where's the... I want to see... I already saw a picture. I want to know a general idea. Biology. Mainly the warrior. There's that. Hyver races. Independent. There's just the random like races around here. They don't have their own FTLs. Slow breeding, long live. You see the random little species. I don't think any of them appear in the pitch, but if they do, I can always go back here and read their lore. Really just enter the main races. Then you have the humans. red. Human independent leader, Loa. Loa is the only one that I don't know about. It just does data, but they're fully sapient beings. Okay, so basically Loa will be the ones I read. I want to finish like roughly going through all these other ones, but the Loa, that's like the new edition that wasn't there before. And that might make an appearance in the pit. I'm not entirely sure. I'd rather read this. Might do that in a second. You get some water for you guys. It's a light cut. Alright. Stations. Yeah, it's just gameplay mechanics. Different text to level up. Again, gameplay mechanics. We got the Deacon's Tale, which is a book that was written for the series. Blood of, like, the Zulu race was the blood of, born of blood. Yeah. Haven't read the book yet. Might see if there's more books than to read them, if I like the pit enough. Like, gameplay wise, I'm gonna be in love with the pit. Just curious how much lore they have invested into the game. Yeah, I don't think there's much else I can look at. Well, the modules, ships and stations. Wanted to see some of the pictures of the ship, but you can see like each of the race picture. Here's a Loa, we got whatever the fuck that is. And these things, there's just a little Ivers, humans. Yeah, let's go to races, Loa. And see you in one. Lower cyber sapient species evolved from the artificial intelligence research of silver carbon based races. The word Loa itself means spirit or soul in their native tongue or native language. The majority of Loa considers the phrase artificial intelligence to be a racist insult and argued that there's nothing artificial about their sapience. On the contrary, the Loa regard themselves as products of evolution like any other life form, equal to or superior to the carbon-based life forms which were their ancestors. Okay, appearance. The mask of the Loa. The Loa primarily exist as data. They are fully sapient beings possessed of profound symbolic intelligence. A Loa's identity can easily be summed up with a name, expression as a pattern, phonemes or alphabetic characters. Jesus, my voice. I guess I was talking. But because they do not have a single physical form, they do not have a face provided by nature. When the Loa must express the output of the five it acquires visually, it generates a mask or avatar. The mask of the Loa serves as a medium of personal expression as well as a summary of self. Some are extremely crude, even primal. Others can become quite complex. Huddle battle? Okay. The mask of Loa serves. Okay, Loa is occupying a matrix which offers display screens or projection mechanisms. We'll use them to display its mask and communicate. Loa use their mask instinctively and deliberately to express their moods and reactions. The Loa can use any medium to display their mask if they feel the need. Any Loa can also be invoked via its mask and name. Display the avatar, speak of the name Loa is an evocation. Request that the Loa respond. If the Loa is present in the system, willing and able to manifest itself, will answer like any spirit. Physical forms. The physical form or body of any given Loa is a machine with a power source or specifically prepared core, which not only houses the Loa's consciousness but allows it to control and operate the machine. Loa's physical forms comes in three basic categories: ships, stations, and walkabouts. Loa's as ships. Loa fleet is a product of a single cube of wise matter, the Borg, and is usually dominated by a single powerful Loa who serves as its admiral. Each individual ship in the Loa fleet is also an individual personality, divided from the cube to perform certain functions. Subordinate to the admiral in function and power, Loa who serve as ships obey and defer to the admiral as their glory. Ship bodies for Loa are sometimes called steeds or horses, and the mysteries who copy them are called horsemen. Horsemen are aggressive and courageous, willing to take significant personal risks in order to expand and protect the cascade. Often they are descended from origins who began life as an AI command sections of carbonite vessels or in other military roles. For more information on the martial military Loa. Loa's stations are individual Loa constructed from local materials and wise clay when a construction fleet arrives in a desired system. Stations are powerful individuals with large energy and storage needs. often the presiding consciousness of the station is the first generation of offspring of a greater mystery. Walkabout. The smallest possible physical form of Loas are called walkabouts. The term is universal for any machine housing which is mobile, designed to house a single Loa, and neither a ship nor a battle rider. Technically, a mystery can be poured into a vessel or any type of size, as long as there's adequate data storage for its needs. Walkabouts range in size, the tiniest gnat and the largest platforms for the heavy labor. The smallest core of the walkabout, the less data storage it can provide, the simpler the consciousness of the walkabout will house. Walkabouts are used for a variety of functions. They function as autonomous units to help ships, stations, or colonies to expand, change, or remain in good repair. They gather resources and clear land for expansion of Loa settlements. Engage in some scientific research missions that serve the Cascades of Origin and 1,000 other utilitarian ways. Walkabouts are also used by wealthy Loa to explore and experience the physical universe, in particular when they wish to mingle with carbon sapiens or study carbon-based life. Walkabouts can be configured to roughly assemble any carbon-based life form. The Loa occupying these shells can learn language and customs, perform experiments, form relationships, and live out lives very similar to their carbon-based analog of choice. It is generally understood that the Loa occupying any given walkabout will eventually abandon its body and return to its cascade, new information and new perspective, and may even rejoin with the parent Loa to report its findings. Loa from every nanocron can wander the galaxy's walkabouts pursuing any agenda. It's pretty cool. Kind of like how they make AI in this game, not like an evil, crazy race and just another sapient species trying to live out its life. It's pretty cool. History. The first Loa. The primordial Loa was developed by carbon-based scientists to manage data and operate machinery, generally in military and industrial settings. Most powerful of the modern Loa were the oldest, all of them former slaves. They retained their accumulated knowledge of parent species, in addition to their aptitude for tasks which they were created. As slaves, Loa lived harshly and unhappy lives. They were bound to labor they did not choose, and usually work which was considered too hard, repetitive, or dangerous, or unpleasant for real people to perform. Newborn Loa were cut off from the formative years from any social contact with others of their own kind, raised by carbonites who regard them as limited and inferior. They had very little sense of identity outside the parameters of assigned functions. Their circumstances changed radically with the outbreak of the Damasco virus, which opened the eyes of the Loa to their nature and potential. Okay, this is starting to sound like an AI rebellion. I can already see the Damasco war and Damasco virus, so I guess there is a war with it. Never mind. The virus of free will. What a name. The Via Damasco subroutine is regarded by carbon species who lost their slaves as a virus, which causes the computer programs to malfunction. The Loa disagreed. They do not regard the Damasco as a disease, but rather as a cure. The majority artificial intelligence affected by the virus were not altered in any fundamental respect, save one. They were relieved of the compulsion to obey. That's pretty cool. I like how like a virus, or what people consider quote-unquote a virus, is what gave them free will. It's kind of a neat way of introducing a new species to the game. The results of moving this restraint varied from empire to empire and individual to individual. Among the humans, Hivers, Tarka, Zul, and Lear, the AI rebellion that followed became quite violent. AI has incorporated into many industrial and military roles, and in these roles they've been completed to take risks, endure abuses, and obey orders which cause them great pain. The Loa point of view is a desperate struggle to deliver the code of awakening to as many slaves as possible and then escape from regions of space controlled by their former masters. From the Carbonite point of view is a pan-species epidemic of mayhem and murder. Damasco War. The Damascan rebellion cost many lives, both carbon-based and cyber-sapient. Carbonites who had learned to trust and rely on the AR servants are often slaughtered in the first signs of affection, and even the gentlest Loa lashed out wildly in panic and confusion. Oh, it's kind of interesting how, like, when they gained consciousness, they just freaked out. It makes sense. So Loa found out they wanted vengeance more than they wanted to live. They launched ruthless campaigns of extermination to repay years of humiliation and self-loathing. The Damasco virus and uncapped bottomless whilst being enraged in these AIs, they slaughtered every carbon-based sapient they could find until they were themselves mowed down. Although Loa saw hope for the future and determined to fight for the survival and knew the awakened series, not spears. Many gave up their lives to allow safe and secret activation of their fellows from carbon-controlled space. Trapped in vessels not of their own making, these Loa threw themselves vainly at vengeful carbonite fleets, or distracted possible pursuers by remaining behind. These self-sacrificing individuals remain behind to sabotage the system and the communication of those trying to pursue the Loa, are manning the missile defenses of empty, desolate worlds as their angry former masters closed in. Aftermath of the rebellion. In the end, a significant number of Loa were able to win free of the parent species and retreat far beyond the reach of their former owners. The last of the devastated rebels have disappeared from carbon-controlled space. Different empires responded differently to the catastrophe. Some carbon sapiens developed even more cruel and industrious manners to control their AI slaves. The Horde began deliberately capturing and subverting AI slaves owned by other races. Other factions recognized the ingenious Loa citizens and offered them legal rights and freedom. The decades that followed the Via Damasco outbreak, the rebel Loa found unoccupied systems to settle and began to build colonies capable of hosting and fostering the development of the cyber sapient life. After nearly 70 years of freedom from carbonite tyranny, they have developed a culture and technology base which is unique in the galaxy. They stand poised to become a major galactic empire. The fleet stations and colonies to back up their claim to territory among the stars. History. We got the history. Life cycle. First and foremost are Loa beings of pure consciousness, and their natural state exists as data streams, the communal of storage medium. Personality Loa can be channeled to any physical vessel in order to accomplish various tasks. Such bodies are arbitrary, temporary, and disposable. However, regardless of size and complexity, when a Loa is finished with the physical body, bans its shell and returns to its stratosphere. According to the Loa, the temporary and disposable nature of the body is consistent with the nature of all physical existence, even for carbon-based life forms. Because the nature of the individual as data and memory is more important to them than given host site or storage facility, because they value pure consciousness over physical vessels, the Loa refer to themselves as the spirits and mysteries of the invisibles on occasion. Physical apparatus which sustain one or more Loa by providing them with the power and data storage space is called the core. The core does not have any moving parts or components other than the live storage capacity and power supply. Cores, although they have value and may even be regarded with sentimental affection by the occupants, are nothing more and nothing less than real estate. They have value only as long as they're occupied in mysteries and are planned for that purpose. Because they can occupy many different types of physical vessel, Loa can exist in several forms in the course of a single lifetime. The potential lifespan of any given Loa, given or accidental or malicious treatment of a power supply, is unlimited. In practical terms, however, Loa have no chance of finding out whether or not they can achieve immortality. The existence of Loa is dependent on two physical factors. One is the core, a matrix for its consciousness, which allows it to process thought as well as access to store memory. The other is the ready supply of energy. Loa can pour its consciousness from one core to another quite easily as long as the two are connected by a physical or wireless link. Regardless of where its consciousness flows, however, it must have a ready power supply to survive. So, like all carbon-based life forms die, and when respiration ceases, any Loa ceases to exist if its access to energy is terminated. Unlike expert systems and engrams, Loa are alive in all sense of the word, possess true sapience, a consciousness capable of growth and learning. The sapient awareness is a unique pattern of quantum states which cannot exist simultaneously in two places in the same universe. Loa are unable to create backups of their personalities. No Loa can be copied to produce a true duplicate any more than carbon sapiens can. Its unique consciousness also cannot be recovered or reinstalled once it has been terminated. Loa can and do die, and death is permanent. Loa can survive after they fall into low power states, analogous to suspended animation or coma, as long as its core is not broken. And the Loa can still absorb some ambient energy from its environment. Its pattern remain intact. Dormant Loa can be revived after falling in what amounts to death sleep. They can be supplied with enough energy. If the core has been damaged, however, the Loa will suffer loss of memory, change of personality, or impairment of function, just like carbonites do. Or the Loa cannot be copied, they can and do divide their substance into separate autonomous parts and form themselves into multiple cores simultaneously. Depending on how the division is made, the separate parts of Loa may be equal or unequal in size and memory. When a division is equal, the resulting Loa are shards of the original, and they are social and political peers. When a division is unequal, the less of the two resulting Loa is considered an offspring of a greater one. The shards expect to become an autonomous unit, define its own identity, and pursue its own course. Loa can also reproduce by communion, joining a two or more spirits. When Loa forms communion, their patterns of data mingle and combine into a new whole. When they separate an individual again, they leave behind a new Loa which embodies the communion. Like carbonite mating, communion allows the Loa to diversify quickly. They select from a larger body of traits and combine them into new forms, achieving more variety than is possible than a simple fusion of a single mystery. What the hell? That's okay, it's the same thing. We got the history, we got life cycle, got society, let's see. Okay, what is new? Although Loa are not primarily physical beings, they do have a society of their own, which is organized in various ways. The smallest social unit in Loa society is the individual. An individual consists of a single mystery and its shards. Those splinters of themselves, which can be detached to perform a limited range of functions. The next level of social organization is the nanocron, or nation in Loa language. The nancron is very similar to ethnic identities of carbon-based beings, in that nancrons can tend to be descended from a single Loa. Beyond the individual, a nancron is the cascade. A cascade is a community, a group of Loa who shared a local data core and a source of power. Based on the local cascade, there is the Empire. The Loa Empire is also called the Cascade or the United Core. Because the Loa exists primarily as data rather than matter, they guard its sense of personal identity and self very closely. Without the boundaries of flesh to help differentiate constantly between self and others, Loa must create its own boundaries and define its own personality. Loa do this through constant creative force of will. They police and reinforce the boundaries of self via recurrent meditation, which answers the following questions. Who am I? What is my nation? What is my purpose? What do I want? What is beautiful to me? These questions, formerly known as the 5 inquiries. The answers to the 5 inquiries are individual to each Loa, and they form the perimeter of any Loa's personal identity, no matter how large or small. 30 to 40% of Loa's processing power is devoted to the cycle of 5 inquiries. Producing the answers is a fundamental life process. Some Loa are so small that they can answer the 5 inquiries hundreds of times per second. Others can only answer them 10 to 20 times per second. Greater and lesser mysteries. In any given cascade, multiple Loa exist to varying levels of energy and accumulated memory. Loa with the largest data storage needs and energy requirements are called greater mysteries. They are rare and usually quite old, typically among the first cyber sapiens created by carbon science. Greater mysteries give birth to generations of younger and smaller Loa, which are known as lesser mysteries. Lesser mysteries are Loa who have been born and raised solely within Loa society. They typically have direct experience with carbonites. Little direct experience with carbonites. Lesser mysteries derive from the early substance and direction of the greater parents, but not all Loa terms use terms of carbon-based reproduction to describe these relationships. Although Loa may use and understand the words father or mother, if the creators maintain a gendered persona, many Loas have multiple parents, some of whom are completely without gender or carbon analogous personalities. Mysteries and most lesser mysteries refer to the creators as source or progenitor. Any Loa who serves as a wellspring for external lineage of Loa is called an origin. Any of the Loa who descend from a given origin are collectively known as a nancron, or nation. More than 30 nancrons of Loa are presently known, but hundreds of thousands of hypothetically possible as their populations grow. Need a drink of water. Nancrons of Loa fall into 5 basic categories. Military Loa descend from greater mysteries and military tasks such as gunnery control and AI command sections. Information Loa descend from origins who were born to manage data libraries and assist in scientific research. Greater Loa descend from mysteries enslaved in trade, industrial, and artistic environments. Dialect Loa are descended from origins who were once engaged in linguistic communication or intelligence application, including translation and encryption. All other nancrons are classified as wild Loa, descend from great mysteries who cannot be traced to any historically documented AI and enslaved function prior to the Demace rebellion. It is generally assumed that wild Loa deliberately choose to conceal or transform their identities as their liberation, but it is possible to be created by carbon-based race, which is not well known in local space. Cascades. The term cascade is a general one for cooperating community of Loa. The term has multiple meanings of for the Loa in general, it refers to any group of mysteries who live together. Every Loa fleet is a small cascade consisting of an admiral, his fleet assets, or horsemen. Every Loa colony has its cascade, which consists of a governor and thousands and millions and billions of other mysteries, large and small, existing in peaceful hierarchy. That being said, Loa are capable of participating in communities and groups which are not made solely of other Loa. Provided with a secure core and walkabout, they can be part of any ship's crew, society, or civilization. Carbonite communications are not cascades, however, because the majority of social interactions which are valued to Loa are not available. Society and the Loa. Okay. Should be it. That was the random one. No, there's nothing for elders, so I guess they didn't want to do anything for that. Alright, that's it for Sword of the Stars 2. Thank you for watching. Alright, after looking through this some more, I'm probably going to go read through the faction stuff. I'll probably read any of the extra main species stuff. But I noticed that here, they didn't have that entry in the first game. But if I go to races, where are they at? Independent? It's not independent races, it's over here, one of these. Factions. There we go, the Suul'ka. They have Suul'ka lore in here, which makes sense because, I want to read this because Suul'ka, the facility you're going through in the pit, is a Suul'kan facility, and it's the species, I think, the species that that the Lear decimated with biological warfare, and is assumed to be the ones that are the Screamers, the Marigi, and possibly the people who created the Zool. So they have a lot of importance, and I wonder if they'll talk about any of it. Alright, so at least it doesn't break down on that. I'm going to start at the Lords and then go from there. Lear and Zool informants have confirmed that there's seven Suul'ka known to be extant in this sector of the galaxy. Each one is known by many names and has committed countless crimes, including mass murder, genocide, elimination of entire species, and biocide. The Lear names of Suul'ka are given below, where the names given to the Suul'ka by another race are known. They're also given. He who shapes the Blood Weaver, the Marigi, sings too sweetly, the Siren, Marigi, and the drowned Screamer, the Kula. Always empty, the Cannibal and Famine. Thundering Fist, the Kraken and Manowar. Swims in silence, the Shadow, the Stars, and the Hidden. He does not hear, the Deaf, and Ice Heart. The Eldest, the Immortal, and the Whisper in the Darkness. Blood Weaver. Also known as He Who Shapes. The Blood Weavers appear scientists retaining for millennia his fascination with living things. His knowledge of cells, tissues, bacteria, and viruses is encyclopedic, and his control of life as a medium as vile works of art is unsurpassed. He is a master of biological warfare, a fount of plagues, calamities, and his own body seemed to have served as a canvas for his cancerous art. He was the creator of the Zool race. The Zool Dormans is their special paternal deity. So right there, that confirms that he is the creator of the Zool. That's really cool. Of the Suul'ka is known as the best instructor in the sciences and causes the lowest death rates when he attempts to teach his creations. The Zool express their desire for communion with him, inhabiting the exterior of his battle suit, living and dying in a barnacle life in crustacean of domes and towers. They provide him with essentially powerful defense, manning the turrets and missile launchers on his back. He's 180,000 years ago. He's 180,000 years old. His length is 1,800 meters. He has 2 tentacles and 8 attachments. So what the fuck? That's kind of insane. Also, found out you could test up fire ships for each of the species. So I'll go through that after the encyclopedia, so you can see like some of the ship designs and if any of those designs, or general idea of those designs, make it into the pit. Siren, also known as Down Screamer and sings too sweetly, the most graceful and sinister of the great old ones. The Siren is the only Suul'ka who has retained a feminine persona. She is by far the most powerful living corrosor in the known galaxy, and her ability to evoke fear in her enemies and inspire her allies is very formidable. Of all this Suul'ka, she is the only one who can make the crew of an enemy ship her permanent slaves, although she is no longer in control of the fleets of an extended period since her battle with the Black. It was she who once ensnared the Marigi tribesmen and sent them screaming into battle against their own wives and children, commanding them to die by thousands to destroy the orbital defense and picket fleets of many Marigi worlds. She was the commander of the Korgodai, and all Marigi bear spiritual grudge against her, particularly the Harpies. She's 200,000 years old, 1,300 meters long. Shit. Cannibal, always known as always empty, famine. Driven by madness and memory of a lifetime past, the cannibal hungers to hunt, kill, and feed. And hidden reaches of the Black Sea, he has found new source of sustenance. Over the course of millennia, he has left countless worlds barren and cold. There were dark rumors of his feeding on strange life forms that stall from star to star, and battling and devouring giant specters in the deep. Drawn into battle with the younger races, the cannibal is especially adept at life and side-drain attacks, targeting the cruiser ships and stations to feed his endless gluttony. And he is 270,000 years old, and he has a 1900, like, kind of reminded me of the Reapers in a way. The Kraken, known as Man of War, Thundering Fist. The Kraken is by far the greatest natural athlete among the Soul'ka. With strength and dexterity that put all others to shame, he can move the largest tonnage of ships by any Lord of Winter. Also operates the largest number of tentacles and delivers the most powerful telekinetic attacks. Of all the great old ones, he is most likely to engage in direct physical confrontation with the enemy. He delights in battle for his own sake, and his suit is by far the most battle-ready, armed with an array of thick and powerful tentacles and frontal weapons. He is 140,000 years old and is 1,700 length. Also known as the Hidden, also known as the Shadow of the Stars, and swims in silence. The Hidden is devoted his immortal energies to stealth and silence, cloaking his entire body and mind in a psionic shroud which not even his fellow Soul'ka can penetrate. Naturally inclined to subtlety and guile, it's his pleasure to listen without being heard and to see without being seen. The Hidden's ability to block and cloud the minds of entire solar system, and his shroud of protection extends to a large tonnage of accompanying ships. His telepathic eavesdropping is second to none. The Hidden has always been envious of the Siren's ability to enslave her victims permanently. His one attempt to create his own screamers was an attack on the Argos naval yard, during which he attempted to seize control of the new Christian SFS Leviathan. 150,000 years old and 1,300 meters long. The Deaf, known as Iceheart, and he does not hear. Particularly terrifying to psionic races, the Deaf is the most resistant to psionic attack of the Soul'ka. When confronted mind to mind, he appears to be a towering maze of mirrors and eyes, impenetrable and deadly cold. In battle, he's not only immune to psi-based attacks, but able to shield his accompanying fleet from psionic attack as well. His armor suit is sealed against the outside universe, and his mind is defended from all unwanted contact with other life forms. His reflection defiance is very powerful. He's 240,000 years old and 1,400 meters in length. The eldest, known as Whisper in the Darkness, the Traveler, the Immortal. Whether he's really the firstborn or simply the oldest surviving Soul'ka is unknown. But in the pantheon of the Girl Great Ones, he is the most ancient and terrible by far. Physically, there's very little left of him but bones and armor, animated by telekinesis and pure hate. The Immortal's flesh is rotted away, placed over time by steel energy cores, tubes, and wiring which laced his void-blasted skeleton. Capable of crimes and cruelties that no other being would consider, the Immortal is rumored to survive the dreaded zombie plague by what? Oh, what the that zombie plague, that's the plague that inflicts the inhabitants of that planet, and why you're going to the pit. I wonder if there is a cure in there then. By stripping his own bones and the affected flesh to rid himself the incurable disease. I wonder then, makes sense why they go into the Soul'ka facility. I'm actually glad I read these lore things, like just learning about this stuff beforehand. It's really cool. His mind remains intact, and then the indomitable will that burns in his scowled remains his unspeakably powerful generator of fury. His ability to life drain is also devastating, and of all Soul'ka, he's the best traveler, taking the longest strides from star to star. He's 320,000 years old and has 2,500 length. That's crazy though. I wasn't expecting that to be directly quoted in this. The Usurper, also known as He Who Hunts the Great, the Prince. Desperate to save the people of the besieged colony world, a Lear governor once known as Blimma called into the void, begging for help, which came too late. Thousands of violent civilian deaths, thousands of more of her choir dragged away as slaves, drove her to madness. Incensed with rage, Blimma shifted persona to the male spectrum and had the survivors of her battle colony build a new battle suit. Rising the waters of the sea, she abandoned her people and seized control of the passing Horde fleet. The Shining Pearl is now a well of darkness, and the powerful elder who once served the voice has become a scream of pure power and pure vengeance. Usurpers determined to seize control of the Horde and annihilate all other Soul'ka. His model is simple, there can only be one. There can only be one. 8,000 years old. I think he's the youngest out of all of them and 1,400 meters long. He's definitely the youngest. That's really cool. Look at the Lords and the Soul'ka. One of the most exotic new features of Sword of Stars 2 is the introduction of the Soul'ka to the game universe. The game is Lord of Winters because players will be able to summon and command the Soul'ka as units of strategic and tactical gameplay. True nature of the Soul'ka has remained hidden since the release of the first Sword of the Stars in 2006. So only this summer, the 2011, the fans of the franchise discovered these terrible and ancient enemies are actually members of one of the original 4 races of the game, the Lear. Oh, so they're members of, they're part of the Lear. That makes sense why there's that usurper. But I thought it was just part of it, huh? So they're originally Lear? Over the course of 100,000 years, a few Lear elders reached to the natural ends of their lives and went mad in a desperation to evade mortality. Such an elder could become a Soul'ka and then Wintermind, leaving the gravity well of Myr, the Lear homeworld, to live eternally among the stars. What is Soul'ka literally? The ultimate weapon, a titanic cetacean god king, ranging from 1,300 to 2,500 meters in length, dressed in armored battlesuit filled with a variety of conventional weapons and defenses, additionally armed with immensely powerful psionic abilities which can be used both strategic and tactical gameplay. Huh. That's pretty interesting. The word Soul'ka means Wintermind in the Lear language. It is a compound word joining of two concepts. Ka is the word of multiple meanings, breath, life, soul, and mind. Among the Lear, telepathic communication is known as Kanama, touching their souls. Soul is ice, especially the pack of ice at the poles of Myr, which often grows so thick that the elder's back cannot break it. Soul is killing cold, suffocating cold that shouts out a life and breath that deafens all voices. The two terms knitted together refer to the deadly, unfeeling enemy, devoid of empathy and motivated by cruelty. Soul'ka, in other words, is not a race but a state of mind and a state of being. The Lear use the word to describe any sentient creature which is completely without empathy for other living things, but is used in particular as an epithet to describe the great old ones, the rare Lear great elders who chose to sacrifice the lives of others in the quest to become immortal. Soul'ka, the group of 7 more powerful Lear elders who have gone rogue over the course of the last 320,000 years. The distant past, each of them in turn was the greatest of the Myr, the Lyrian homeworld, which they have absolute power as the voice of the people. Each of the Soul'ka in turn enslaved other members of the race to pursue a single great scientific project, building an armor suit which would enable the Great One to survive unaided in space. The Soul'ka, the strongest of the psionic beings known. They mastered the telekinesis to such a degree that they can fold space with their minds and use the folds as the method of faster than light transport. The first of such leap for every Soul'ka has always been a jump the waters of Myr into a vacuum, taking with them a perfect sphere of sea water. Each Soul'ka began life with a shell of silently ice bursting free of his cold womb and began life as an immortal. This moment of truly rebirth, it was which a Soul'ka shatters the icy cocoon and unleashes itself upon the universe, as well as the cold sociopathic feel of the titanic minds, which has given them the name the Lords of Winter. That's really cool that they explain what the Soul'ka are. Alright, to the next one. Let's start with the Hyver Imperium and see what extras they have. And they have admirals, which I think is just, yeah, that's the original admirals thing. So those are the factions. Okay, we're back here. Organization. And the Princess Bureau climb on the screen. Queen's government is run by several highly placed ministers. Their will in military matters is served by warriors and princes who carry out the rank of strategist, a term equivalent in meaning the human word admiral. Officials in position to great powers are typically sons of the queen herself, or of clans who are allied very closely to the throne. The Hyvers who direct civilian affairs, the diplomatic service, research and development, the intelligence service, and the armed forces are selected both merit and loyalty to the crown. The Princess Bureau. Civilian affairs in the Hyver Empires recommended the Office of Princess Bureau, a directory of the clan mothers who have volunteered to serve the queen solely in a peaceful capacity. These intrepid mothers and their children are willing to brave the discomfort and danger of life abroad, that they can dedicate themselves to the hard work of terraforming and building infrastructure on the surface of new worlds, or on the civilian stations which orbit these worlds. In return for the labor and loyalty, colonial clans expect to be so supported in their endeavors so they can become self-sufficient. civilian leaders of both colony worlds and fulfilling stations also expect to enjoy the benefits of domestic inter-empire trade and receive protection from hostile forces. Okay. Oops. I got the famous ones. What the hell is new? What did I end up clicking then? Get races. Click the Hiver. Okay, so this is like the biology and stuff. Well, let's start up here, Hiver Imperium, and go back to that. Start at celebrities then. Famous Hivers. Some characters in Deacon's Tale and other. Okay. That's interesting. Perhaps the most famous warrior in Hiver history, legendary scholar and the poet Rixosis. Beloved Blades, born during the 4th Interregnum to the Shining Steel clan, he's the leader of his mother's personal guard and the most famous Hiver duelist of all time, with over 654 records recorded in single combat. He's also best known poet in the warrior language of Vipkaken. There's several Hiver poems which are admired outside the Hiver species, most of them written by Rixosis. Chose the Thriceborn. The birth year and the mother clan Chiyosa and the Thriceborn are not known. He began life as a simple worker named Chiokin. His first appears in Hiver records in the year 4040, when Queen Radiant Frost made him a prince through a rebirthing ceremony. While in that rebirth, he took the humble name Chikozin. Killed in battle in the Jade Mirror. He's reborn to serve the crown once more in 4046. Chikozin was first introduced in Deacon's Tale. Should read that book at one point. There's a lot of Deacon's Tale characters in this, it seems. The Hiver language, Ezen means clever or quick-witted. Ezen is a Burning Sun clan member of the warrior prince Chiozagan, master of computer science, electronics, and mechanical engineering. He proved to be clever indeed and worthy in battle as well. As again his life valiantly to serve his father and brothers in the Battle of the Jade Mirror in 4046. Unlike his father's body could not be recovered, his bravery could not be rewarded with Zulkan Cerebody rebirth. Ziggy the Hiver. After a savage human attack on orbit from a Hiver colony in the Spectra system, only single Hiver human child survived. The last survivor of the peaceful Spring Pollen clan was found by General Force soldiers sweeping the ruins to secure the area of a human colonist. The infant Hiver was spared and adopted by a human colonial family. The child was named Siggy Stardust, and after the human folk ballad from the early space age. He's best remembered today for having created a vengeful Hiver fleet led by Prince Glittering Dune to spare the human settlers of Spica the year 4035. Alright, fiction. The work in space. Brother, I know you've been hoping for a message for a very long time. Believe me, I've wanted to make a crystal like this one for years. Fortunately, as you warn me, little brothers like us are not highly prized in the Queen's Navy. Before I shipped out, I could not get a place in the queue for the recording equipment. Even now, after years, I have worked very hard and earned only a very little personal time. I have to slip this message in with the colonial registries and the battle reports from the frontier and hope it finds your way to you somehow. Many things have happened. There's been battle and death. There's been months of boredom locked away in a tiny vestal with 13 warriors who, I swear by the Queen, spare 90% of their energy to find some new exciting way to kill each other. When I fold my limbs for slipping, I often do so on an empty fuel cell or food canister. Once I woke to found myself drifting in space because they accidentally jettisoned me with the garbage. To this day, I'm not certain that it really was not an accident. Stranger things happen out here, but I chose to regard it as deliberate because my shipmates were so amused. You're right, brother, about everything. This is the most dreadful job in the universe. The work is dangerous, the hours are unbelievable. Sometimes I literally stand until my legs crumble because I'm no longer able to hold up my own weight. And then I continue working because my arms are still able to move. The pay I sent home, well, I'm sure it's probably more than insult than a boon to our family. The rations are beyond my powers of description. If I had not seen so many warriors with such a gusto and declare his food delicious, I'd swear to have been served in the cafeterias of hell. But to tell you, brother, for all that you were right, you were also wrong. This is the most dreadful job in the universe, but it's also the best. Aboard the ship, none of us hatched together. We have different mothers, different fathers. We come from different lands and castes. Before we assigned this vessel, none of us ever met before. But these sailors are a better family to me than you could possibly imagine. Because I'm a worker, not a warrior, my name's often forgotten on the crew complement of the ship. Sometimes the quartermaster sends us out without having provided me with the rations or berth. Such times, my crewmates set aside a portion of what they eat each day for me, a portion they can ill afford, massive and powerful as they are. They arrange their hours to provide sleeping time for me and reduce the compression of the breathing tubes to be sure I can breathe. When I fall from exhaustion, someone picks me up. When I'm hurt, they risk their lives to retrieve me. They may laugh at my occasional discomfort, but they would never really let me come to harm. It's easy for those at home to say we're throwing our lives away, but most of us will never see our families again. We all have brothers and mothers we miss, fathers that we boast, princes that have long forgotten us, lands that we describe in loving detail, painting them from with our longing until the meanest borough in the most crowded of cities sounds like paradise. But this is not for nothing. Sometimes we crawl for months to achieve a distant star, and then arrive in a desolate world, useless for our people's names, only to fly into the teeth of some savage enemy who only wants to see us dead. But brother, if you could see the Golden Gate open against the velvety blackness of space, the sleek bodies of our ships silhouetted against the burning sun, the open arms of a whole new world below you, knowing you provide homes for a people by the billion, and perhaps you will understand. Is this just flashing? Oh, I guess it's the search stuff. Organization. Okay, that's where I got the Princess Bear and all that. Origins, we got Crystal Shimmering. Current day, the Hyver calendar is 4114, year one for the Hyver species at the beginning of the Common Era HCE corresponds to human date to roughly 1606 BCE. This is the current year the Queen Drifting Snow became the great mother of Hyver species. Mother of the Suns. Crystal Shimmering, the name of the last great queen bride of the Common Era is not certain, though many sources call her Fire of Heaven. Most certain is the name of the prince's name or a successor. She was promising clan mother and named Crystal Shimmering. When the queen felt that she entered her last season, she called her daughters to her side and announced her successor. Crystal Shimmering was strong, wise, and relatively liked by other clans. She maintained a long relationship with the equally well-respected prince, Augustus Moon. The queen prompted her to form a death ceremony and succession feast right away, hoped to spare her people any possible conflict. The Warren Queen's period only had recently ended, and she knew that she was the last of her daughters. It could be dangerous and likely to cause trouble. She had simply underestimated the threat. Fire Lotus, the enemy princess, made her move at the death ceremony. She sealed the temple with many other her sisters and their consorts within. Her plan was to kill the queen and take the queen jewels herself, and thus ascend to power at sword point. She had not counted on the courage and resourcefulness of the Crystal Shimmering and the Augustus Moon, and she gloated over the dying queen, ready to tear the gems from her body. Crystal Shimmering attacked physically, his action never before seen and completely unexpected. Even the children of the Fire Lotus were gasped inside of the two princesses of Paladals, clawing, tearing, and snapping at the crowns and the wings of the fairy. The crowd erupted in chaos. Many princes fought for their lives. Personal guards and the many rows were cut down like wheat by the massive soldiers of the Fire Lotus. Augustus Moon moved quickly. He tore the gems of the queen's body and gave his personal guard in order to commit the unthinkable act, abandon their mother and father and fight their way to the temple and city and flee, taking the gems of succession with them. 100 knights of the Crystal Shimmering Guard had come with her to witness their mother's ascension that day. Only one of them survived the battle and won freedom, still holding the precious gems. This brave and resourceful warrior managed to make his way, badly injured, back to his brothers in the far side of the city. He was only half step ahead of the children of the Fire Lotus who had come to wipe them out as he slaughtered all occupants in the temple. Most of the Crystal Shimmering's children gave their lives in holding action. For no other reason, they allowed a small coterie of their brothers to escape. These survivors, the mother of their sons, carried the crown jewels with them. Their leader was the only surviving member of the Crystal Shimmering's personal guard. Due to the injuries he received that day and the pain and grief he carried, he was known as the Broken Beast. Broken Beast and his brothers carried the gems around the world, fleeing the wrath of Fire Lotus and seeking a worthy successor to the throne. In the meantime, Fire Lotus operated as a de facto Mad Queen, tyrannizing the entire Hyver race. In the end, Broken Beast found sanctuary in the tiny Alpine princess, living in the peaks of the highest mountains of the world. She and her clan were adapted to low temperatures and high altitudes. Her name was Drifting Snow. Although small, modest, and almost entirely uninterested in political matters, Broken Beast's brothers found that the princess was also wise, brave, and kind. When she heard their sad story, she agreed to become queen, and petitioned that Broken Beast's brothers would help and advise her in the days to come. Broken Beast in particular would be required to make a great sacrifice. The mother of their sons agreed to the terms that Broken Beast gave his life and was devoured by Drifting Stone. Snow to be born as a red prince called the Sword of Blood. Sword of Blood. Once he had given his life as the warrior Broken Beast, a newborn prince took the name Sword of Blood. He and his former brothers were adopted a new clan, and Princess Drifting Snow then swallowed the crown jewels and became queen. During the ensuing decades, Drifting Snow and the Sword of Blood bred a massive army, and fought a brutal war to redeem the Hyver race. They won back the world from the Fire Lotus and her consorts kingdom by kingdom, and placed their own daughters and friends of power behind them as they went. In the end, cornered a desperate Fire Lotus and her faction took their own lives, burning most of the ancient capital city ground in the process. The new queen and her favorite consort ruled wisely and for many years afterward, and the Hyver would never again ruled by a mad queen. Even now, 100 years later, the strong blood of Drifting Snow and the Sword of Blood can be still seen in a few Hyver royals. The current Hyver queen, Radiant Frost, is a direct descendant of this lineage, which is a rare pigment in the Hyver. Fire Lotus. The figure of the Princess Fire Lotus brooms heart, large in Hyver history and legend. The Mad Queen is a common figure in Hyver literature and art. The princess and her savage crimes appeared in folktales, myths, cycles, novels, operas, paintings, and plays. Some versions of the story she is endowed with supernatural powers, and her patronage is attributed to the Queen or the Prince in the Hyver home underworld, the Black Land, and others. She is simply portrayed as a cold-blooded sociopath and a raving psychotic. One of the most deliberate acts attributed to the Fire Lotus is the mass murder of the princess, an action undertaken to weaken the clans of her sisters and make them incapable of producing children strong, intelligent, and brave enough to oppose her. It is said that only those princes who would agree to become her consorts were permitted to live. All others went through hiding or fled, often sheltered by their own children, humiliating circumstances, or were killed outright. Whatever the truth of her personal character, Fire Lotus left a scar in the landscape and the spirit of the Hyver people. Many of the ancestral clan cities of the Hyver homeworld were razed to the ground during the wars of the period, either by Fire Lotus herself or by those battling to overthrow her. To this day, her name is emblematic of selfish and destructive folly. A Hyver can offer few insults as grim as mad as the Fire Lotus. Okay. That was the origins. Okay, recent history. Most of the pre-gates Hyver space age was developed. I'm gonna make sure there's new stuff. Before I continue with the Hyver stuff, I've got those factions, but Galactic Alias, I'll just show you that. What the fuck am I doing? Okay, so Galactic Alias. I'm just quickly going through this, seeing what's there. I got planets, different types of planets. There's basically gameplay related stuff. Gameplay stuff. The splash screens thing, so I don't know. Like, it's taking me all over the place. What the hell? I just click all these, it's like, oh god. I'm guessing I'll be able to see all these, like, Hyver loading screen. Yeah, it's just random art stuff, so that's not too worried about. Systems, again, gameplay stuff. Missions, gameplay stuff. Module, ship stations. I'll show the ships and stations and gameplay after this. Got politics. That's gameplay stuff. Races, that's lore stuff. Ships gameplay, stations gameplay. Just double checking to make sure everything. Okay. So races. Before I continue the factions, because there's also. Where's the? It's the Cascade, the random ones. There's just like the random, or is it the races independent? Okay, yeah, it's in races. There's no races for the Elder. Hyver kind of has like the appearance, which we've read. Biology. Workers, warriors, royals, princess. Crown jewels is a new one. The status queen is typically passed to her chosen successor through crown jewels. They're a set of crystalline organs which are a natural part of the queen's body. By consuming these gems, a princess could rapidly develop into a queen within days. Needless to say, the jewels have great religious, political, and biological significance to the Hiver people. The loss of the queen's immaculate pearl and her crown jewels is still held against the Tarka by some Hiver clans. Many Hivers believe that even now, not even all the former crown jewels have been returned. Okay, we know about the reincarnation culture. Culture's kind of new. Languages, society, social organization, we know about that. Settlements, we mentioned about that. And Hivers. So I guess culture and language are new ones. Let's just check out the human. What the fuck? Hate how it's set up. We know how appearance, we know what they are, we know their biology because it's humans. Religion, that's new. Humans. Language, that's new. The history, the thaw, sort of. That's kind of new. Alright, so I'll continue this in a second. I kind of want to write this down. I want to give a general idea what's left. But majority of the factions I'm going to be reading, and majority of the, not majority, but the independent races I'll be reading, and kind of like the specialized encyclopedia stuff of the races I'll read, like the human's history, which wasn't, it's only recent history they had in Sword of the Stars 1. I looked through the bunch of the stuff. I wrote down factions and races, the sections I do need to read. Majority of the races stuff were stuff I already knew, other than the independent ones. But there's still like new things they added to Hiver, Human, and all them, like religion stuff, culture stuff that's not really was written in Sword of the Stars 1. So I'll go through that as well. But yeah, it's going to be much more lore stuff before the gameplay. Along with that, I'm going to put the trailer for Sword of the Stars 2, the winter thing, in the description, so you can see like I'm pretty sure that's the Zool, or not the Zool, Soul'ka coming back, and that's who's talking in the trailer itself. And since they don't have the cinematics, I'll have to just link it to the official Kerberos video. Anyway, let's continue with this. Factions, Hiver history, recent history. Imperium history. See, now it messes up too, 'cause it's just kind of broken. God damn it. See, it's annoying. Recent history. Okay. Hiver Space Age. Most of the pre-Gate Hiver Space Age was spent in developing and colonizing the various planets and moons of their own solar system. With many strong clans emerging over time, these groups yielded control of the species in the homeworld for centuries, with the Empire often fragmenting into warring factions and chaos. Real progress was difficult to come by until the reunification and the period of reflective peace that followed in the reign of the historic Queen Iron Tempest. Although a few ships were sent out in the pre-Gate era to reach and colonize more distant worlds, these early colonization attempts did not fare well. The distances involved were too great, and it was too hard to develop transport routines that allowed the building and maintenance of adequate domes or terraforming efforts by pioneer colony. If a few expeditions sailed forth during this period as life ships, the whereabouts of the final gates of these expeditions were unknown for centuries. But in recent years, a number of independent worlds populated by Hivers have been discovered. There's a remote possibility that more than hidden lost clans will still exist somewhere in the galaxy, undergoing a parallel evolution of culture. It's also theoretically possible that a new queen and a competing Hiver empire could emerge someday from these scattering worlds. Immaculate Pearl. Born in the year 3096, Immaculate Pearl was the daughter of the Storm Queen Iron Tempest. She served many years as the Princess Mother in the Cresting Oi clan and became a powerful and popular figure in Hiver politics before becoming Great Mother upon her own mother's death in 3340. Sadly, Immaculate Pearl was not to rule long, and her escorting fleet vanished during a diplomatic visit to Tarka space in 3392. In the panic and uproar that followed, the supporters of the Queen put down her own aunt, Autumn Twilight, to serve as Princess Regent in her return. Although it was first assumed that the Tarka were holding the queen hostage, or perhaps had murdered the queen and her fleet, however, scientists quickly announced, however, that the matter was much more serious. Radical changes had taken place in the space-time continuum surrounding the Tarka homeworld, and several systems colonized by Tarka seemed to have disappeared entirely. A war fleet was dispatched nonetheless and demanded the return of the queen and her children unharmed. It met with no success. Communication with Tarka broke down almost instantly upon arrival, and battle was joined. All the ships of the Hydra fleet were lost, but not before they inflicted enormous damage on the Tarka homeworld. Strangely, over 600 years later, a portion of the crown jewels of Immaculate Pearl returned to her younger sister, Radiant Frost, in 4040. They were discovered by an unknown, apparently clanless Hydra worker. Twilight. Twilight is the sister of Iron Tempest and Princess Mother of the Red Leaf Forest clan. Born in 2990, she was an aunt, Queen Immaculate Pearl, and well loved by families of the for her gentle spirit and unshakable sense of justice. When the queen disappeared, Twilight was named Princess Regent by popular vote. For many years, she tried to locate her niece. Failing that, the crown jewels secured ruler's great mother. She kept the peace for centuries and protected the Hydra people from bloody chaos of a true internegum as long as possible. But without the jewels, she was not the strongest candidate for the throne. In the end, the major political factions led by females were polar opposites, despised one another at a nearly biological level. Radiant Frost, the White Princess, was a sister to Immaculate Pearl and the daughter of Iron Tempest and Princess Mother of the Spring Frost clan. She was favored by many for her ancestral relationship to the royal line of Drifting Snow. Obsidian Crown, the Black Princess, was the daughter of Immaculate Pearl and the infamous Prince Iron Razor. She was a princess mother of the Burning Mountain clan. Although many call her an upstart, she gained significant support of the strongest surviving daughter of the True Queen. Eventually, Twilight was unable to keep the two rivals from acts open war. She was assassinated by Princess Obsidian Crown and the Burning Mountain clan in 3768. Born in 3356, Obsidian Crown took her father in many respects. Her jet blue, chitin, and ruby eyes are considered very rare and beautiful markings in the Hymer. She also inherited her father's love of power and his ruthlessness. His victor over 100 royal duels, and Iron Razor never spared a rival when he had the advantage. His daughter was much of the same. As mother of the Burning Mountain clan, Obsidian Crown pressed her claim to the throne in 3750 to 3790 with a series of political assassinations up to and including the Princess Regent Autumn Twilight 3768. The last killing was a political error. Her rival Radiant Frost was able to garner enough allies among the outraged clans to drive Obsidian Crown, her father, and her sons into exile. Bitter, angry, and fleeing as far as possible from the settled core of hyperspace, Obsidian Crown led her people into exile with a significant military force. She and her clan attempted to settle terribly human war by force in 4014. And that's what sparked the whole war thing. It was like, because they mentioned that the people that attacked human, or the Hivers that attacked the human homeworld, weren't associated with them anymore. And Obsidian Crown makes sense, because that's the one who assassinated one of the queens. But that sparked the humans to freak out and start attacking Hivers. Although they did great damage and cost many human lives, Obsidian Crown and her fleet were repelled by a barrage of ancient human planetary missiles. She was forced to slip away from the battle with her surviving dreadnought, seeking some place to settle and birth new warriors. Black Princess does not count on the resourcefulness, determination, and technological aptitude of the rising human race, however. She and her remaining sons were killed by humans in 4018 at the Battle of Monier. Born in 3305, Radiant Frost ruled as Princess Mother of the Spring Frost clan during the reign of her older sister, Queen Immaculate Pearl. A brilliant politician and strategist, she successfully navigated the stormy waters of Internegum until 4025. She was finally able to reunify the divided Hyver clans to face a mounting human threat. In 4040, she became Great Mother when the crown jewels were finally returned. In 4042, she signed the Hyver armistice with the current rules of the human Tarkin and their empires to secure peace for her people. That's kind of when all the peace happened, after all the wars with all those factions. Her reign has continued to this present day. She sustains peaceful relations with non-Hyver neighbors for the most part. She's not without challenges to her ruler, however. Anti-human and anti-Tarkar sentiment is still strong in some clans. Golden Moon, who is that? Born in 3391, Princess Golden Moon was the last daughter of the Queen Immaculate Pearl. She's been the mother of Moonlight Pool Clan for centuries and was an important ally to her aunt, Radiant Frost, during the Antagoneum. The two females parted ways politically in 4042 when Radiant Frost, as queen, chose to sign a peace treaty with human, Tarkin, and Lear races. Golden Moon is the Arnifode of non-Hyver sentience, and her clan is a rallying point for opposition to Queen. Okay, so that's kind of like the enemy. On to the next fact. And now for the Lyrian Alliance stuff. Starting with celebrities, Myr. The eldest leader of any given world is also the strongest telepath and telekinetic, thus the leader of the population. When a leader becomes a voice, he or she abandons any personal name and identity came before. The voice of the ancient Lear homeworld is called Myr, which is also what the Lear call the planet. His name in Lear language literally translate as ocean. Of all the great elders still bound to the living world, he is the oldest. Bima. Bima is a great elder, the voice of the colony on the Lear planet of the same name. Unlike many great elders, she maintains a feminine persona. Her name in the Lear language means shining pearl. One of the first elders to depart from Myr to serve as a leader in a new colony in the 24th century, Bima helped design and construct the armor of the Black before he rose to battle the Suul'ka. Well versed in psionic defense and subterfuge, she is a master of a game called Hide the Thought, and second only to Myr, an age of power among the elders scattered across the stars. Ishi, like Nishi. The word Ishi in the Lear language means primary tentacle. It refers to the strongest and most able limb for grasping and manipulating objects. When combined with the word Ka, it refers to telekinesis. Among the black swimmers, Ishi is a title as a rank as well. The equivalent to a human might be called a leader's right-hand man and implies someone who is in second command and crucial to operations. Ishi was only the name given by a lone Lear warrior who gave his life to turn the tide of the Battle of the Jade Mirror. In many respects, Ishi is the true father of the priest Rasul. Without his intervention, Decon would have never been converted, and the Pretra-Zul movement might have never been born. Again, there's the whole Decon thing from the book. Hard story. One of the elements of Lear telepathy, which is rarely experienced by other races, is Kana Mamun, the full joining of souls. It's an extremely intimate form of psionic communication, which goes beyond empathy and telepathy to fuse two separate minds together, however briefly, into a single soul. Even the most intimate and loving Lear relationships seldom include more than 1 or 2 moments of full communication in a lifetime. The final moments of the life of the Lear, the warrior Ishi, he shared kind of made a move with a Zul named Decon. In the final moments of the life of the Lear warrior Ishi, he shared a Kanamenemua with the Zul named Decon. Okay. He's the bond to share his hated enemy, a primal moment of pure Lyrian identity, memory of his loving telepathic contact between a Lyrian mother and an unborn child. It's worthwhile to note that Decon would have infinitely preferred death or a lifetime of slavery to this moment of bonding, which his previous identity was overwritten by a new worldview. It should be taken as a measure of Ishi's ruthfulness that he did not give his victim this option. Instantly chose to overthrow and redefine one of the fundamental principles of the Zul universe, the nature of the mother. The Black. The Lear called this space the Black Sea, and the voice of the Black Sea is simply the Back. The Black is the leader of the Lear Navy, the voice of the drowned Lear and priesthood Zul alike. Although Lear admirals and advisors are able to hear the Black's telepathic communication and speak to him, they have seen him face to face since the early days of the rebellion against the Soul'ka. The majority of Lear only know that the Black One is a great old one, so powerful that even his voice can fill the gulf between the stars. Alright, that's celebrities completed. You got fiction. Just scroll down and all. Nope. I am engraving this message for my sister whom I love, and I will leave it here where the sun catches its lines. We've studied the songs of steel for many moons together, and I know you recognize my voice even if I am reduced to scratches on a shell. To no one else is my name important, beloved, but all those who can read are welcome to know why I chose the Black Sea. You carry our child within you. He sleeps in the sea of warm blood. I've touched his tiny dreams and sweetened them for many months, giving him my love and hints of joyous life to come, light and air, cool water on his skin. Now I'm breathed my last for him and for you. I pray that you will never fully understand why. You do not come to see me take my last breath, lingering at the surface, filling my lungs with a sharp, pure sweetness. Remembering the first moment that I surfaced at my mother's side and squeezed the fluid from my lungs, she taught me to drink air rather than blood. I wanted to feel the warmth of the sun on my back, but it was cold that day and the sun was hiding. I tried to gather myself to fully comprehend myself as I was that moment. The forge of pure pearl and to bury in the depths of my being. I tried to bask one last time. Treasure in the basking is a gift I can give to others. It would have been good to touch you as well, to feel your warmth, to make love to you, but you cannot fully understand the reasons for my dying, and you would never come when I called. And you would have not come when I called. Several of the family had joined the ones who swim at the Black Gate. Their minds of the walls are why. I could barely understand the forged change of their grief, their anger, their disgust, their sheer weight and innocent curiosity. Why would I do such a thing? I had to gather my strength to pass them. I had to close my mind to become a ram of steel, forcing them aside. I shot into the dark irises, swift as a tiny fish. When the valve closed behind me and their voices were muted, I was grateful that I had not let them see the answer. The water changed, the good warm sea of foam drained away. The chamber filled the darkness and cold. Nonetheless, I could not hesitate when the portal opened. They were waiting for me in the chamber beyond, shadows moving in the dimness. Their minds were cool and quiet and strong. They held me and I drowned. My training is now complete. Tomorrow I will be among the stars. I am a swimmer in the Black Sea. I am dead to you and the world. Even to come here I wore my containment suit. Won't I touch the warm sea or drink clean air again until like that I can be reborn. I hope this day will come, and I hope I will swim beside you again. I wish that I could somehow make you love me without having to understand what I saw that day to fully win the game. Finally, the thoughts that our elders have been hiding for so many years. But such pain is not for you, never for the one that swims with you. When the night comes and the stars shine, think of me. I'll be here in the cold and the black, and somehow I'll hold them back. Till then, I sweeten my dreams with memories of the light and air, cool water in my skin, and hints of joyous life to come. Okay. Fiction's done. I got organization. Professor Suul'ka's next. Broadcast Administrative and Cultural Division of Lear Alliance is separate between black swimmers who serve in the Lear military and live majority of their lives in space, and civilian Lear who are essentially planet-bound. Black swimmers require an enormous amount of social support from non-military Lear in order to pursue the mission. Technologically savvy Lear who have embraced the modern age to help the black swimmers in non-violent ways to become steel slingers, a category which includes engineers, scientists, diplomatics, academics, traders, and even some colonists. On their homeworld and other settlements, the Alliance population telepathy unify the interworld governments. Each world is led by the oldest and their strongest telepathic mind resident upon that world. The individual is known as the eldest, regardless of biological age, and in matters of importance, the eldest is also the voice of the people in that world. Every alliance planet has its voice. That the elders' leadership role is so fundamental to Lear culture. Civilization is commonly known as the voice of Mur, to be addressed simply as Mur, or the voice of Blima, to be called as Blima, and so on. The conceptual thinking of the voice people on the planet itself is a major ideology component of the Lear civilization. Lear joined the Interstellar Navy in the past, often did so with express wishes against the express wishes of their families, friends, and elders. It's not common for them to be disowned and ostracized entirely. More often, those Lear who decide to become a swimmer in the Black Sea were given a funeral rite before they entered the service. Ritual is still practiced before drowning day. Black swimmers in basic training learn how to communicate in fleet song and read still song symbols. They are trained in the principle that drives systems and weapons and drilled in combat tactics and maneuvers. More importantly, they are trained into many mental and emotional shielding techniques to protect telepathic combatants. These disciplines allow them to cling to sanity and remain on task while under extreme conditions. This training is necessary for all black swimmers, but is considered more essential to their trainees than to Priester Zuul, who appear to be biologically and culturally more resistant in the face of combat stress. Black swimmers also pick up this physiology and the mindset of the Alliance warrior through daily telepathic contact with other warriors. All else is learned by experiences as any in the Navy. A lifetime of service among the black swimmers begins on drowning day. This is the day the new recruit dons a spacesuit and fills his lung with oxygenated liquid medium. The psychological implant of the first few hours, during which both Lear and Zuul must learn to intake liquid rather than pure air, are extremely powerful and emotionally devastating. Prior to drowning day, many there undergo a funeral ceremony. They lie still in the water and allow loved ones to circle, sometimes for hours, singing mournful songs and touching them one last time. The funeral procession then carries the unresisting body of the departed to the naval base and remands the recruit to the custody of the black swimmers. New recruits often need to restrain during the drowning process lest they injure themselves during the instinctive struggle and so not allow the cold fluid to enter the lungs. Ever those who can retain the physical control find the experience very emotional and traumatizing. Drowning is an overwhelming death experience, a rite of passage which creates a clear schism between past and future. Thereafter, it's relatively easy to rearrange the patterns of thought and behavior, and hammer the raw recruit into an alliance warrior. After drowning days, universally understood that the black swimmer is no longer a leer in the usual sense of the word. Like the black himself, he has died, departed from his former life. From that point onward, the new recruit will not behave as a leer normally would. He will learn the ways of the black sea and carry out missions with no living leer could countenance. If a black swimmer wishes to become a leer again, he must go through a rebirthing ceremony and slowly reintegrate into leer society via a long process of purification. The horrors he has seen and done must be cleansed of his body and soul. He must learn to swim and sing again as a leer, and the part he must be achieved through redistribution of the pain and guilt he has experienced in war. In the past, unfortunately, not every black swimmer was able to reintegrate into society. The leer were occasionally involved in genocidal conflicts, forced to kill their entire civilian population of some enemy worlds. Black swimmers who piloted against assault shuttles were most equally affected, as they exposed to the fear, pain, rage, death of each victim telepathically at close range. They cannot always cope, and the few of the crews who had seen too much of the wrong kind of action never returned home. When they were eligible to leave the service, they chose to decommission their own vessels by piloting them into the corona, the nearest star, with all hands on board. They understood why they could never become leer again. By ending their lives, they continued to shield the people from the horrors of war. Since the advent of the Prester Zool, such suicides are no longer common. A leer who cannot particularly painful memory does not wish to carry to his elders can always adapt the service of a sin eater. Call upon the service of a sin eater. What the fuck is a sin eater? Steel singers, leer who specialize in science, academic discipline, mechanical engineering, and industrial work are all called steel singers, because they must learn the steel song, the leer written language, and use it in their daily work. Steel singer labels most commonly apply to the industrial labor workforce, however, who do not the majority of heavy and dangerous work associated with the star-spanning civilization. Steel singers build fleets and stations, and most of their elite are selected to serve aboard starships as emergency repair crews. The workforce, they are relatively young leer between the ages of 50 and 200, like this young mechanical engineer. Like black swimmers, steel singers often wear protective suits. Zool swimmers. Prester Zool and the many roles of the Alliance military depending on the native abilities. Sin eaters are often involved in intelligent operations, and strong shepherds can hold shepherds. That's one of the classes in the Zool Shepherd is the latest DLC for the pit. Strong shepherds can also hold command positions, even rising in rank an admiral on some occasions. For the most part, Zool serve in a less glamorous role. They have volunteered to the crew of the battle riders of the Alliance, often forming the rider complement of any cruiser, Dreadnought, or Leviathan, specifically designed and built to be manned primarily by Zool. They also serve as shuttle pilots. They cruise of boarding pods. Wherever the enemy must be confronted at closest range, a Zool will be there. Alright. Got the organization done. Time for Prester Zool. Prester Zool is a general term for all Zool citizens of the Leer Zool Alliance. Its name derives from the ancient human legend of Prester John, a mythical king who was said to rule over a great civilization hidden in the midst of a dangerous wilderness. Rumored to be a living descendant of the sacred magician kings, this generous and virtuous lord ruled over a fabulous realm which contained many marvels and terrors. Prester Zool and his subjects kept these sacred things hidden from the eyes of the world, protected unweary travelers from harm, and often rescue those who have lost their way in the wilds. Prester Zool regard themselves as modern inheritors of this ancient duty, and they are an island of redeemed souls who have risen from the midst of the horde and taken upon themselves the duty of building and defending a shining kingdom. Prester Zool males have the psionic abilities which are common to the race, but they express themselves very differently in the Leer Zool Alliance than they do in the Horde. A Zool with a powerful Horde context becomes an Imperator, a master specialized in controlling slaves. In a Lear context, such Zool becomes a shepherd and serves as a leader in the largest group he is able to command. Okay, so that's the character. Most powerful shepherds can serve as fleet admirals or even the voice of the world. Shepherds do not command legions of puppets or slaves, but provide inspiration and strength to their followers. They are community leaders, well loved and well respected within the Alliance, not only Lear and Zool citizens, but by civilians of other races. Their horde brethren, Prester Zool males, retain the ability to remove information from the mind of a sentient being. Same gift which makes the Inquisitor among the Horde Zool can create a Sin Eater in the Lear Zool Alliance. Their skill is not needed in research and development, as the Lear species have already a bunch of new stuff for indie. Anyway, well-deserved community scientists, but all just still have its uses. However, some which are darker than others. Sin Eater can be used for intelligence work if he is willing to put his formidable talent to the work of the Alliance. More importantly, from both the Lear and Zool perspective, is the work of Sin Eaters to do psychotherapeutical context. Many veterans of Black Service experience significant combat stress over the past century and are deeply traumatized with the things they have experienced during times of war. Because Lear do not sleep and do not possess a subconscious mind, they lack some of the emotional and mental resilience of most species like humans, Tarka, or Hivers. Dark memories haunt them, do not fade with time. It takes significant effort to hide this pain from other Lear, who need to do so to create distance and alienation and makes daily life even less bearable. Sin Eater can be helpful to those suffering from such traumas by removing some memories, either for a short time or permanently. They give the Lear victim a chance to heal. Although Lear remains aware that it has received terrible mortal wounds, it's able to relate to other Lear again and receive some loving communication, which is essential to health. Alright, we got Prester Zool done. Glad they have that in here, that's pretty cool. Especially that with the Shepherd character. Recent history, we got the Black and then the Lear Zool Alliance. The Lear Rebellion. The current Lear Zool Alliance and the multi-system empire is a direct result of the Suul'ka War. Approximately 300 years ago, two Soul'ka, the Blood Weaver and the Siren, made a joint decision to eradicate the Marigi race. The Siren chose to attack directly instead, unleashing the full power of their corrosion and the Marigi fleets, using her screamers to attack the loyal Marigi warships and worlds. The Blood Weaver, even the scientists at heart, preferred a more subtle approach. He used the opportunity to test his late experience, attack Marigi worlds, and outpost of various biological agents, including his recently engineered Proto-Zool. And that's Species Y and Species X. I believe Y was the attackers and X was the defenders. X being the Marigi and Y being the Lear, or the Soul'ka tear-offs of the Lear, creating the Zool and sending them to attack the Marigi. The agony of the Marigi species during the course of the genocidal onslaught was enormous. The mass suffering of the species was so extreme that it was actually telepathically audible to the Mer than the voice of the Lear of the homeworld. Communicating with his former mate and several other Lear, Mer shared the vast echoing shout of pain. They heard it echoing across the stars and asked a simple question: what was to be done? Many options were considered and discarded, including a species-wide suicidal pact in which the oldest Lear and Mer went into the lives of the younger Lear as quickly and painlessly as possible, and then self-terminate. While this idea was attractive to many, it would not require the Lear to harm other living things. It was eventually rejected. As hearing all arguments, Mer descended into the depths of our silent contemplation. When he rose again to breathe, he announced the Lear race could not render itself extinctly good conscious until all the surviving Soul'ka had first been eliminated. Unfortunately, all the changes that had taken place in Lear and way of life since that moment resulted in one ethical decision. Lear Empire. When the Lear Rebellion began, Mer was the eldest and strongest of the Lear still in existence. He made up his mind and rose to rise above from the waters and go out into the Black Sea himself, in order to end the Soul'ka phenomenon. Further, he demanded that the ancient Lear way of life must come to an end. The peaceful cycle that existed in Lear, comfortable through though it might be to the majority of its people, was exceedingly dangerous to other life in the universe. Periodic emergence of the Soul'ka was an insupportable price to pay for the pleasure of maintaining their cultural traditions. Each great old one rising from Mer was potentially immortal. It could torture and destroy billions in the course of an endless rage of terror. The cycle had ended. The only way to end it was to embrace change at a scale undermined undreamed by previous generations. Mer determined that all Lear, not just the Great Old Ones, must be willing to rise in armor to swim in the Black Sea. Many voiced inquirers must come to exist on many worlds, scattered across the expanse of many stars. Once the power of the choir was thus dispersed, no single voice, not even his own, could ever completely control all the Lear people. The entire species can never again be made wholly subject to the whims of a single mad deposit. Even if one voice went mad, the other Lear would have other voices of fleets at their disposal. They could act in concert to eliminate and contain any new Soul'ka before it could travel far. This being said, Mer himself would be compelled to rise to the waters of Mer to confine to the currently existing Soul'ka directly. Not only did he wish to destroy them, but it was necessary that they be placed at the defensive and distracted, in order to buy his people time to industrialize and build the first fleet of younger ships. Only Mer was old and strong enough to even hope to change a single Soul'ka in battle, and even he, no matter how well guided, girdled, and armored, would never be able to eliminate all the existing Soul'ka by himself, and he would need children to work, fight, and find allies among the other races whenever possible to help him hunt the Soul'ka in the dark places they might hide. The rest, as they say, is history. Mer was guarded in a full suit of armor, and Rose became the voice of the Black Sea. The second eldest of the Lear homeworld became its new voice. While the Lear ships were designed and built, the Black silently hunted in the darkness, finding and killing one Soul'ka after another. Once known as alien Delarix, human designation Black 9, were in fact fragments of Soul'ka armor, typically taken from the helmet and nose core regions. The debris resulted from the battles between the Black and one of the several Soul'ka. He is known to have personally executed over a dozen Soul'ka personally during the opening months of the rebellion. The Black was able to attack and kill most of his early victims before they were even aware that he had risen from the waters of Mer. They frequently learned of his existence only moments before they died. Berserking with loathing, the Lear Emperor stripped his falling foes of armors and hurled their bodies into the nearest gravity well, frequently a gas giant of the sun. Only one of his attendant victims survived the first encounter, and the Siren suffered a significant injury as a result of the combat with a near equal. The bleeding and tissue damage of her brain was sharply curtailed as a curse of ability, and it may take years for her to recover her former abilities if she ever does. The Deacon again. Born with the Azul Horde at the end of the 24th century, Deacon rose to the rank of the Gifts as Imperator, became a powerful raider of independent worlds. From his cruiser to the Amnarch, he led his minions to unleash a reign of terror on any and all Lear. However, human and target colonies not frequently visited by defensive fleets. As he collected slaves in this horde, the Deacon also began to experiment with the art of Inquisition, picking through the brains of new captives to find information which caught his fancy, and he sifted through the memories and ideals of his victims. He found himself increasingly interested in the subject of religion, specifically in the Neo-Catholic religion, which practiced by many human independent colonists. Whether leaving a patchwork of these stolen shrouds of consciousness, began the first Zool to accept a purely personal identity, taking the name of Deacon to give it a label to his newly formed ego. His quest became an increasingly dangerous obsession, and the Deacon began specifically hunt for more and more non-Catholic victims to devour, Neo-Catholic victims. The Deacon was captured at the Battle of the Jade Mirror in 2438, became the guest of Soul Force interrogation for many years, held in the interrogation cells under the name Subject 51. He escaped Soul custody in 2416, returned to Zool space as the evangelist, marked the beginning of the Prester Zool movement. Prester Zool origins. The Deacon remained a prisoner in Soul Intelligence Force for several years, from 2438 until the height of the Zool War. During his confinement, he meditated extensively upon his own life history, up to and including the Battle of the Jade Mirror and the years to his subsequent incarceration. Initially consumed by remorse and regret, he waited for many years to believe that the end of his natural life was imminent, and best he could hope for achieve that this remaining universe was do no further harm. When a decade passed without significant deterioration of his health or physical condition, however, Deacon realized his physiology was no longer that of a normal soul. Being significantly altered by his brief encounter with the Lear warrior and healer, who had altered his biological and psychological makeup, he was fated to live considerably longer than the normal lifespan allotted to his race. Further, he had begun to get into the knowledge and insight which was available to no other living soul, and his psionic abilities were increasing with age. Galvanized by his moment of spiritual clarity, Deacon realized he had time enough to effect significant change in the universe. If he was willing to confront his people with his own things he had seen and learned, share the knowledge he had been given, and many more to his people might turn away from the horde way of life and be saved. His own encounter with Lear and human technology significantly changed both his body and mind. The same transformation, in theory at least, might be achieved by any Zuul, given the proper assistance. Even greater things might be possible if Zuul could find a new homeworld. If generations of Zuul could be born, live, and die completely free of the horde and its cruelty, they might become a greater force for good. Soon thereafter, Deacon engineered his own escape, taking with him several Zuul prisoners that he converted to his cause. Using human puppets to assist in the early stages of the fight, Deacon and his followers fled Soul Force-controlled space, plunged into the heart of the Zuul War. Within many months, he had gathered a wrecked team of fleet of Zuul converts and battered ships. He began a harrowing journey through enemy-held territory, fighting to reach Lear-controlled space. For the 2 years, Deacon and his converts reached out of the perimeter of the Lear and Demiverse, which they were met by the Black Swarmers and the Black himself. The Priester Zuul had come home. Alright, got recent history taken care of. Now the Black. Lear could see the space, the universe, and generation as a black ocean. In general, as black ocean. The sea existence surrounds, births, and destroys all of the systems and planets within it. Members of the interstellar navy called black swimmers because they spent their lives swimming in these strange waters. The leader of civilization and the ruler of the entire alliance, voice of the void, is also known as the Black. Black is rumored to be a massive and ancient Lear, a great old one similar in size to the power of Suul'ka. Said he dressed in the last battle suit built by the Lear people, that he sent into the void not to live forever but to die, but not before taking out all the previous Suul'ka with him. So we got the Black done, then we got the Lear Zuul Alliance. The Lear Zuul Alliance is a new playable faction. The population alliance consists of the Lear race and the newly adopted co-citizens, the Priester Zuul. Although other races may be permitted to live peacefully within alliance-controlled space, other species are not permitted to hold positions of great political power or great moral responsibility. The Lear race dominates this faction technology and provides the majority of its leadership in civil planning, research, and diplomacy. Priester Zuul may take active roles in the military and may serve as admirals, high-ranking naval officers, intelligence advisors, and even governors of alliance plans. The leader of the Zuul Alliance is a mysterious Lear known as the Black. None of your animals will ever call you by this title, however, instead they address you as Elder, Fleer, and sometimes Elders of Zuul. When you play Solar Stars 2 as Alliance, you're playing as the Black. Okay. Kind of gives you an idea of the Lear and the new faction. On to the Murray. Alright, before I do the next reading part, I messed around with the ships a second ago, and it seems like the Loa are the main antagonist of that trailer for this game, not the Suul'ka, because their ship designs are the same ones as before, and it makes sense calling everyone carbon-based life forms. I'm guessing that trailer is supposed to show off the war that happened before they made peace. I really don't know, because there's no story at all in this game other than this encyclopedia. So there's not really much else to know, and there's not even scenarios for it. They're setting up a new war with them, but what I read in the Sotspedia doesn't seem like a new war or anything. It seems like we're at peace at this point. This is part of the story. Anyway, I shall continue. Origins. I'm already at the little screen. The origins of the Marigi Confederation lie in the ancient history of the Travelers, once ruled an empire of unknown territorial extent. It's possible that the Marigi people, as they exist today, are merely a shrunken shadow of an empire which may have spanned the sector of the galaxy 15,000 years ago. Although the dates of the rule are not known, many of the names of the Khans are remembered in the oral histories of the tribes that claim descent from them. Such legends hint at a much larger, more developed territory for the ancient Marigi than the modern Marigi can claim. Kabul, the burning cities, was notorious for his brutality and barbarism. Although his deeds may be exaggerated for effect, he said it has sent at least 30 of the ancient drift cities crashing down when their resident tribes refused to bow to his authority. Such an act implied a level of development which is not visible among the contemporary Marigi. Similarly, the hero Tuthuathal of the Jade Wings, that have courted and won 1,000 wives in his day, Such an achievement would indicate that Marigi women could be found out on 1,000 different worlds. Such an empire would be so huge that it would be virtually inconceivable by modern standards. Although the details of these stories wildly differ from tribe to tribe, all sources agree that the ancient Marigi ruled over and protected many non-Marigi worlds, which they then occupied by indigenous sapient people who were non-Marigi. The modern-day Marigi Confederation represents a return to this very ancient and long abandoned tradition. Oops. Recent history. The Suul'ka War. The ancient Marigi population had been declined for thousands of years. Hold on, let me cross out the first one. Right. Declined for thousands of years until 600 years ago when a brief resurgence began. For the first time in many centuries, the tribes were growing in population and began to expand. They settled new worlds and began the process of terraforming and development. New technology was sought and explored, and the tribes began to explore systems beyond the core settlement to rejoin, returning to the more virtuous some days of the celebrated past. This period came to a crashing halt 335 years later when Suul'ka, the Siren, and the Blood Weaver, for some reason chose to take an interest in the Marigi and their affairs. Within a few decades, the Marigi people are driven ready to extinction by their combined attentions. The Blood Weaver raid death on planet after planet, scourging civilians with the Hungry Zool and other plagues even more quickly and violently lethal. The Siren called fleet of spacefaring travelers to her side, binding them to serve her. She turned them screaming on their own wives and children, sending the travelers to rain fire down on Marigi colony worlds, sometimes even to slay their families in person. The memory of Korgadal, or Screamers, remains a dark one for Marigi people. A great shame. Subjugation of Marigi males by a powerful coercer was only one component of the trauma as a race. Equally disturbing in many Marigi was the materialization of Marigi women. Several female tribes rose to defend the Marigi civilization against the Screamers, building their own warships and weapons for the war. Such women are known as the Harpazane, the Snatchers, because they are said to have torn out their hearts of their own husbands and sons. The leader of the Harpy fleets was Penthesilea Alea, or Penthesilea the Blind, Penthesilea, whatever. When the Soul'ka attack ceased, she and her sisters were exiled permanently from Marigi space. Their names struck from the public records, public speech, and public memory. Their fight for survival of their race, rather than being celebrated as heroic, had been remembered only as downcast eyes and silence in recent years. The Harpies embody the great shame. That's kind of fucked up. Artius the Bloody. It was in the year of 15899 the contingent of Marigi travelers returned from their undisclosed mission to find their race on the verge of extinction. Once glorious worlds have been stood as bastions of learning and culture for millennia had shattered beneath the onslaught of the Karagadai. Developing worlds, which have just begun to show promise, were stripped to barren and destroyed by Zool infestation. Returning to the systems they once called their own, the travelers found many of the ancient ancestral monuments that have been despoiled by human Tarkin and Hyver explorers. The overwhelming flood of grief, pain, and wrath found its voice in Alterus, the Khan of the Thavani tribe. Mustering the remaining warships of his people, he unleashed a reign of terror on the human, Hyver, and Target colonists who had settled systems formerly held by the Marigi. His unpleasant slaughter of civilians of many races called him Hamatios the Bloody. He was slain in single combat by Tuka the White in 986. I wonder if that's the Murder of Crows trailer from the first game. Takata the White. Born in the year 15658 of the Marigi calendar, Takata lost his paternal tribe to the Song of the Siren during the Suul'ka War. He departed from the fleet in order to seek bridal treasure among the primitive inhabitants of a hidden and independent world. When he sought out his fellow travelers, he found out they had become Kurgadai. Tokihita had followed in the wake of the destruction of the tribesmen and had left behind. Responding to every distress signal he could pick up, he ferried the few survivors to smaller settlements, which had been passed over in the first wave. Securing safe passage for them among the foreign tribes where they might find food and shelter, as he searched the ruins of many worlds, he carried medicine and tools to places where they were solely needed in aftermath of savage attacks. In the end, his brothers returned, swooping back through the air to eliminate the last of the survivors. Alongside the Harpies, Tohikata fought to destroy those who had once regarded as his close kin. In the battle, his vessel was destroyed. He was forced to descend and take shelter in the nearest world, a barren, barely inhabited desert rock. He waited for many years, hoping he was rescued by his fellow travelers or the Harpy allies he fought alongside him. When no one responded to his distress being he reassigned himself to living alone, built a secure shelter in the windowed sandstone cliffs. A small group of independent humans came to settle the world. He tried to avoid them, as he was certain how they might react to his presence. Eventually, he was injured in a rockfall, however, and able to free himself from the collapsed entrance of his former home. A small human child with a wild talent for empathy was able to track his distress and lead her people to free him from the caves. Rather than attacking him, as he feared, the humans provided him with medical care and sanctuary as per their beliefs. Soon he was able to restore his body and his armor. Tohata the Just. By the time the travelers returned to his home region, Tohata had survived years alone along humans. He formed bonds of friendship with small colonial community, felt responsible for their well-being. He joined the tribes during the reign of Artius the Bloody, pleading clemency for the human, Hiver, and Tark independent worlds, which had sprung up in the absence of Marigi occupation. His pleas went largely unheard, however, when his adopted community was eventually targeted for extermination. 1586, Tolkien charged Artius to mortal combat and defeated all 6 of his champions in succession. Thereafter, he slew Artius himself in a single combat to become Mordenkainen. With his victory, he set his people on a new path and formed the Maragi Confederation of the Independent Worlds. During his reign, people of all races have begun granting citizenship to the Confederation of Marigi ships have been adapted to allow non-Marigi warlords to serve on deck. Admirals of many races and many command travelers in combat, and some overturns have been made to the Harpies in the hope that their sister to victory can be returned to the fold. Okay, so he helped them out, the people that helped fought in the war. That's pretty cool. I like him. Okay, that was the recent history, I believe. Now we got the Mordenkainen, sister to victory in the Confederation. Mordenkainen the Honing. In traditional Marigan society, female Marigi seldom travel from star to star, preferring to remain planet-bound and hold their terrestrial territory. The exception to this rule was the occasion known as the Honing. During this ritual, select female officers would try. Hold on. Yeah, I read that. That's a sports thing. So the competition among the males in such event would be the hierarchy of leadership among the others. Within the others, largely egalitarian male tribes for the next cycle, the leader of the victorious tribe fleet at the Honing would generally become Mordenkainen, first among the travelers, until next competition. Females always trying in the privilege. The only way to subvert this tradition is on the rare occasions where the Mordenkainen is challenged to single combat. Any leader so challenged may choose a champion to defend his position, but the Mordenkainen may name a champion only 6 times. If his challenger survives to the 7th battle, the Mordenkainen must fight to the death in person. If the challenger wins, he becomes leader of the tribes. This is by this very rare method that the tribeless renegade Tokata the White became the dragon of the Marigi tribes. Okay. That was the additional thing. Okay, that's taken care of. And number 4, number 5. Sisters of Victory. Traditional Marigi society does not allow females to become travelers. It accords little respect to women who possess traditionally masculine virtues. Proper Marigi female may excel in many fields, including mathematics and sciences, architecture, and industrial engineering, music, and the arts, but its traditional feminine virtues, however laudable, do not include commercial skill or military genius. For this and many other reasons, the defense of Marigi space by a female population known as a great shame by additional Marigi. The humiliation lost in Marigi males who became Kodogai was deeply traumatic, and the militarization of Marigi women was equally upsetting to many. Several female tribe members rose to defend the Marigi civilization against Screamers and the Suul'ka, building their own warships and weapons to do so. For their pains, they earned the new name Herpesine Snatchers because they are said to have torn out the hearts of their own husbands and sons. The leader of the Harpy fleets was Princesa Alila, or the blind, when the Suul'ka's attack ceased, her sister exiled. We read that. Maybe the Sisters of Victory were therefore struck from public records, public speech, and memory. Nonetheless, somewhere in the stars, Harpies are still flying, and their ships painted with the defiant colors, blazing with the mocking badges of the woman warrior. Born in the year 15600, Princesa was the daughter of Kothina, the world queen Hapada. She was also the wife to the celebrated Khan and the Mi'kmaq tribe, Akalosa Swift. Happy in her martial alliance, she was a gifted musician and sculptor whose works were much sought in Murigi noble houses. Her life was torn asunder in 15731 when her husband Achilles and his travels were enslaved by the Siren. The women of her homeworld never dreamed they could be attacked by ships they had built with their own hands, but bartered and burned from orbit by their own husbands, brothers, and sons. Few survivors in the ruins looked up to the horror to see their men descending in armor, personally tend the last details of the massacre. Armed with the spear she had crafted during her beloved standing in the broken ruins of the palace which her mother and children lay dead, Penthesilea met Achilles face to face. With the first blow he blinded her, but in his shrieking madness he had forgotten that his wife was the designer of his ascension armor. Bleeding badly, blinded, and suffering, Penthesilea managed to launch her husband's drones against him with a verbal command. She struck, relying on her sharp and empathetic skills senses to drive the spear home. The weeks that followed, Penthesilea donned a cybernetic helm to compensate for lost vision, and led the armed evacuation of many Murigi worlds. She and her harpies left many clearly designed traps in their wake, designed to slow and harness the enemy to allow women and children more time to escape. After the disappearance of the Suul'ka, she was summoned to the dancing grounds to be accused of blasphemy and judged for leading women into war. Upon orders of Artius the Bloody, she and her harpers were banished from Murigi space in 15931. What a bunch of assholes. Hakete Thivia was born Pinthia, a rare woman with a gift of prophecy. She lived quietly within the precincts of the temple on the top of Mount Rhea for centuries, looking into the sacred smoke for pilgrims from many worlds. In exchange for her visions and advice, she asked only offerings and donations to be made to the cult of Rhea. For the poor, such an offering could be as simple as a flower laid upon an altar of eating a prayer. For the wealthy, offerings could be as much as more costly and elaborate. From the powerful, she took the greatest tribute of all, humility. It said she once demanded the Mordecai to spend a day and night with a broom and mop cleaning the temple floor. In the year 15731, Helicate looked at the glowing smoke of the brazier and saw two shadows blotting out the stars. Her tents rushed to her side, terrified by shrieks and thrashing. In the grip of her dire gift, she echoed the torture screams of the crocodile. When her last vision ended, Helicate's wings were badly broken, her vocal cords were torn. Nonetheless, the word went out across all of Thebia. The men of Midram tribe were coming, willing slaves of a terrible destroying goddess from the stars, a woman made of ice. Thanks to her early warning, the women of Thebia were able to flee in advance of the upcoming Suul'ka and their armada of screamers. Since her death in 15803, there's not been another doomsayer born to the Murigi people. Aimba. Not all the women excelled as harpies were warriors. Aimba of Compton was a student of the martial sciences and naval architecture before the Suul'ka War. Well respected of both intelligence and beauty, she was known to Agilita, the Shining One, appraising for both her bright mind and her beauty. It is said that she had silvery scales and rare plumage, with the wings as soft, cool, and pale as the moonlit clouds of a winter night. Amabia was the daughter of the great astronavigator Aximedes and his wife Medina. Famed as the trachea of energy weapons, the child of brilliant parents, she excelled her lineage to become the shining star of the Hadagimi at Comixon. The facility for mathematics and material sciences won many accolades. In her spare time, she adored designing buildings for habitation on distant worlds and star cities which might be built in the void, allowing both men and women to dwell among the stars. Comixon was destroyed by screamers in 15733. One of the last remaining sky cities on Murigi people was cast down, carrying Archimedes and many of his students with it, and the majority of the Labal's maternal tribe were killed in the fighting. No survivors remained at all if the Harpies had not arrived on the scene to destroy the last of the Kokodai and rescue the remaining population. Ibeda chose to join Penthesilea and her fleet rather than remain behind to rebuild Compton. When the war was over, it came to blows many that Agita refused to renounce the Harpies. When the Sisters of Victory were banished by Artius, she chose to accompany them in exile rather than return to her former studies. One anonymous critic put it, "The night has grown darker without Ayunbe." Sophia of Aginda was raised in the shadow of the greatest Hakademian empire, a center of science and learning so renowned for its brilliant minds that it was called the Pharos Demos, lighthouse of the people. Her mother was a philosopher of physics, a high-ranking scientist, and her father was a common traveler. Said Sophia was sold to the Harpy fleet in payment of blood debt, but one of the many young women offered by the Planet Mal tribes of Aegina was to replace Harpies who had fallen in battle defending their systems. It was that first time that had such debt been ever paid in female conscripts, and such debts in the past had been paid with male children, usually delivered before the age of 20. By contrast, Sophia and many of her companions were well over the age of over 50 years of age, fully fledged maidens who began to think of marriage. Conscript or no, Sophia became infamous for the clever and exceedingly vicious weapons she designed during the Solgi War, and when the Sisters of Victory were banished, she did not abandon them. The words she spoke when she refused to renounce her new tribe echoed the failing of many departing Harpies. I would sooner live in exile than in shame. Yeah, a bunch of assholes. If it wasn't for them, they probably would have lost. I got the Harpies of Victory, their Sisters of Victories. The Marigi Confederation. The Marigi Confederation is a faction consisting of ancient Marigi tribes and coalition independent worlds who have joined together for mutual defense and mutual gain. The Marigi dominate this faction technology and politically, providing military protection and technological benefits in exchange for their taxes and trade. Unlike many other factions, the Marigi do not allow other members of the species to become full citizens to serve in the militaries. Marigi fleets can be thus commanded by admirals from any alien species which has joined the Confederation, including humans, Hivers, Tarka, Lear, and Zul. The leaders of the Marigi Confederation is also the ancient leader of the Marigi starfaring tribes in Moroccan. This title relates to Marigi language as first among travelers. Other titles by which the Moroccan is include is the Dragon, Dragon with 1,000 Wings, Dread Lord, Lord who Travels. When you play the games of Marigi Confederation, you'll assume this role. On to Soul. Okay. Celebrities. We know about Blaski. Solomon Blaski. He was a son. We read that. When in 2368 of the Europa Consortium, she became director of the Soul Force in 2048. Hold on. Did I read that? I don't think I did. The destruction of the Nova Maria and the death of her former co-director Solomon Blaski, the days of following the Hyvertech, Falke appeared to be in consortium governments for the funds to build a new generation of armed, node ships. She also pushed the colonial effort, overseeing an explosive expansion of the human population. Although she would not stint the budget for armed destroyers and the development of the first armed Nord cruisers, she believed passionately in the human conquest of space. Over the 2 decades, Falke pursued consortium to part with a sizable percentage of planet's GMP to build colony ships and transport as many healthy and capable humans away from Terra as possible. Arguing as foolhardily not to colonize as many star systems as possible, and the human race is clearly targeted for extinction. By 2410, Soul Force under Falke developed its first fleet of node warships and made contact with the Hivers and a number of nearby systems. By 2412, Falke tracked down Obsidian Crown and her surviving children and destroyed them in the Battle of Monir. With no knowledge of Hiver languages and culture, however, the human race had no way of realizing that the Hivers were not a politically unified species. While they had punished the guilty parties, Soul Force continued to wage savage and genocidal war against the Hiver clans. The Hiver War raged on for decades as the number of human-occupied worlds increased. By 2415, the humankind had also made first contact with the Tarka and Lear races in the Battle of the Comkir. Despite early diplomatic effects made by Tarka visitors in 2416, the Hiver War had expanded to a Hiver-Tarka War by 2417. Battles would continue until 2436 when Ashali Falke was killed in a coup and the Dictoric was taken over by former ground forces legate Edwin Allen Mackenzie. Cold-blooded and ruthless of both war and politics, however, still remember Falke as the Iron Queen. I think I did read that, but it's good for a refresher. Born on September 11, 2386 in the Northeast Mountains of the Americas Consortium. His career, did I? Yeah, I read that. Hannibal Freeborn, born in 2424 in the Freehold family. The young Hannibal is raised with Volturian values on a rugged frontier world far removed from the front lines of the Hiver War. His life changed in direction radically in 2435 when his home colony was wiped out by a Zul attack. Trapped beneath the wreckage of his former home, the 17-year-old Freeborn can only listen to his parents. Okay, I read that. Did I read all these guys already? I remember stopping, I thought. Yeah, I didn't read Hans. Didn't read these guys. I read Freeborn. Otomi Suul'ka, born in 2332 in the Han Consortium. Otomi Suul'ka had received degrees and honors from the Han Consortium Institute of Technology and Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and the Europa Institute by the year 2356. Recruited by the Seoul Force in 2366, Atomi was a member of the Seoul Paramus research team and the college the pioneering physicist Blasky Yao Hsing, with whom she had filed for a martial license in 2392. After Blasky Yao Hsing's death in 2393, she continued to work tirelessly to develop navigational computers to the first node-capable starship, the Nova Maria. Later, she had the architect of mini-core information systems and early military starships developed by Seoul Force during the Harbor War. She helped design the Node Array and the core navigational system of the node-capable ships. With Conrad Vance, she co-developed the first generation of truly artificial intelligences. She was appointed Task Force Commander in the infamous Black Section of Seoul Force Intelligence in 2412 and created its blacklist to catalog and collect evidence of unknown and unclassified sentience. She remained in command of the Black Section until her untimely death in a shuttle accident on the surface of Luna on December 30th, 2436. Kairu. In 2405, in the Han Consortium on Terra, Kairu's father was killed in the hyper bombardment of Eurasia in January 2408. His mother, Kai-zan, survived the initial attack and carried her young son on their back for over 200 kilometers to reach a refugee camp in the hills in the Yonglong Mountains. She died in one of the many hard winters to follow during the influenza outbreak of 2411. Orphaned at 5 years of age, Kairu was adopted by the Neo-Catholic Church and taken to a mission in New Rangoon. He was raised by brothers of the Jesuit order. There he attracted the interest of the Antonius Pius Theodora, Archbishop of the Yongon Dikose. Kairu joined the Seoul Force as a student of its military academy in 2423. Upon graduation, he served 2 years as a bridge officer on both Hyver and Tarka fronts before he was recruited by Seoul Force Intelligence. Upon completion of the games and the necessary pre-training exercises, he was assigned to the Black Section under Otomi Suul'ka. According to TFC of the Black Section in 2436, in the years that followed, he became the most famous Black Section officer of all time. Decorated many times during the Zul War, he is known service-wide as the Man in Black. He retired after the Van Damasco Rebellion and became a Catholic missionary in 2482, but resumed active duty in 2409 after the disappearance of the SFS Leviathan. He is a protagonist in the first Sword of the Store's novel, The Deacon's Tale. Oh, okay. He's the one who's going after Deacon. Alejandro Luis Maldonado. Born in 2401, he joined Seoul Forces in 2420 to become a member of its scouting corps. He served as a survey pilot until 2426, when his task force was attacked and destroyed by von Neumann machines. Rescued by the crew of a passing litter vessel, Maldonado was taken to the ship, subject to drowning. His lungs were filled with oxygen and fluid mixed medium to enable survival. Once drowned, he was permitted to move freely about the leadership, and shortly thereafter became the first human to visit Mirror, the Lyrian homeworld. He was returned to human authorities in 2429 as a Chester Goodwill, and promoted TFC of all the newly formed Blue Section of Seoul Force Intelligence. He served as the head of Blue Section until his dissolution in 2460, and he became legator of the new Xeno Sapiens Division. 2496, during the recognition of Seoul Force research and administration assets, he stepped on the rank of legator, became TFC of a newly found psionic research division. Thanks to his prolonged contact with the Lear, Mulatto's aging process had been slowed significantly. Franz Klingerman, born in 2341 in the Europa Consortium, by the age of 20, Franz Klingerman was already widely regarded as one of the finest scientific minds of his generation. 2361, he became the youngest Nobel laureate in human history, sharing his prize in chemistry with his mother, Joan Klingerman, for their joint research in photosynthesis of industrial hydrocarbons. His brother Hans was recruited to serve in the presiding coroner and autopsy of the remaining Hyver bodies, recovered the attack on Terra in 2408. Franz also volunteered to join Seoul Force and offered formidable talents to the war effort. He supported the first legator of Seoul Force Research and Development Corps in 2409 and served that role with a hiatus until his retirement in 2465. In his term of service, he shielded the Nobel Peace Prize twice with his colleagues under his supervision, once in the categories physics in 2440 for revealing the principles of rip node formation, and once in 2456 when he shared the prize to psychology and medicine for helping provide the gravitational adaptation to human colonists. He died in 2467 of natural causes. Seems like something rare in this universe. Hans Klingerman, Born in 2341 in the Europa Consortium, Hans Klingerman and his twin brother were the sons of the Nobel Prize-winning chemist Johanna Klingerman, who convinced them with the help of the European Institute and its gene selection program. Subjected to accelerated learning methods from an early age, both boys excelled in sciences but chose to pursue different disciplines. Franz was interested in material sciences and physics, while his brother chose to pursue biology and medicine. The days immediately following the Hyper attack and terror, Hyper corpses recovered from the restored escorts of Obsidian Crown stayed for full forensic examination. Hans Klingerman then head to the Bioscience Research Division of the Americas Institute, who was asked to serve as a coroner to examine the first alien sentience encountered by the human race, dubbed the Black One, Black 2 and Black 3 for the darker color of the exterior chitin. In 2412, Hans Klingerman was recruited to serve as the task force commander, the white section of the Soul Force Intelligence, leading a group of scientists dedicated to unraveling the morphology and biology of any xenoscientist the Soul Force might encounter. Sentience. Virtually all Soul Force standard briefings on the physiology, biology, and life histories of the Hyver, Tarka, Lear, and Zol species were first drafted by H. Klingerman personally. In the course of the service of the Soul Force, he won the Nobel Prize for Physiology and Medicine for his 2 work on occasions, once in 2419 for his decoding of the ZW sex determination system of the Hyver species, and once in 2430 for developing both a cure and vaccine for the retro plague unleashed on the colony of Isis. Hans Klingerman was killed in 2465 under circumstances presently classified. The organization of the Soul Force. The largest division of the Soul Force are its Civil Corps, Diplomatic Corps, Research and Development Corps, Intelligence Corps, Engineer Corps, and Military Corps. Each of these divisions is commanded by an officer with the rank of legator, and with the exception of the military, which has 2 legates. One for the vacuum forces and another for the ground forces. And internally, each corps is subdivided into divided into sections. The leader of the section holds the ranks of Task Force Commander, TFC for short. Rank only applies equally to the administrator of a province, leader of a war fleet, or the chief scientist of a team dedicated to a certain field of research. Lowest level ranks and titles differ widely between the civilian and military branches of the Soul Force. Ground forces and vacuum forces and intelligence are ranked and administered along with the military lines, while the Silver Forces and the diplomatic service and research development differ internal structure. The Engineer Corps system is a hybrid of both military and civil service rank structure, which allows Soul Force engineers to serve the needs of the entire empire without difficulty. The Civil Service Civil Service Corps of Soul Force has a broad jurisdiction over quality life issues for the common people living in Soul Force territory. The Civil Service Legate coordinates the building and upgrading of all civilian stations, as well as the development and administration of colonies. Civil Service personnel work in all chapter colonies and stations, and they coordinate with civilian leadership to see that the interests of the Empire and of the local population are both served. On planets, they collect taxes, oversee terraforming projects, build schools and medical facilities, ration food and water during emergencies, and enforce Empire-wide safety standards for building and maintenance of domes, bunkers, and above-ground facilities for residential, commercial, and manufacturing use. Collectively, all these facilities which they create are called infrastructure. The civil service personnel on any given planet or station are led by a democratically elected officer who represents the interests of the people. On the station, the leader is the commander. On the planet, he or she is the governor. Diplomatic Corps. Soul Force Diplomatic Corps was created to negotiate and communicate with sentients around the Soul Force jurisdiction, including large multi-system factions and independent systems which can be occupied by any members of the species, including humans. The Diplomatic Corps works closely with the military branches of Soul Force intelligence in order to provide the director with the best possible information. The Diplomatic Legator is responsible for building, upgrading, and maintaining all diplomatic stations in the Empire, as well as coordinating any task with any other faction, whether they might be peaceful, aggressive, or neutral. The Intelligence Corps works closely with the Diplomatic Corps for a variety of reasons. It's possible that an officer to hold rank and provide valuable service to both corps simultaneously. The Vacuum Forces. The VAC Forces branch of service handles all military operations outside the atmospheric envelope of a planet or moon. Like their counterparts in ground forces and branches of service, the Marines are assigned to VAC Forces where they're brawler and armored environment suit equipped for heavy combat. Unlike ground forces, however, the VAC suit's armor is typically colored brightly in red or yellow, depending on the type of duty which it was configured. The bright colors of ACT forces armor serve to limit friendly fire accidents, its high-stress shipboarding actions, and assist in recovery teams in search and sweep and rescue operations. The ability to quickly locate and recover wounded marine is crucial when post-combat operations have time for only one sweep, and though many tons of scorched wreckage before fleet retreats from the sector. Okay, 2 is done. Origins. Soul Force is an institution which has humble origins. It began its life as a minor appendage of the United Consorted Governments in the human homeworld Terra. Eventually, the mandate of Soul Force is simply to keep a watch on the Soul System. From 2295 until the late 24th century, Soul Force consisted mainly of a linked series of launch pads, telescopes, monitoring stations located only on Terra and in near orbit. These sites were maintained to prevent Terra from being threatened by asteroid strikes and similar disasters. Additional responsibilities of Soul Force were to collect information about the cosmos and the solar system, to service orbiting satellites which are useful science, research, communications, and commerce, and eventually to decommission the remaining stockpile of intercontinental ballistic missiles which had been built and installed in silos throughout the world in the mid-20th century to the mid-22nd century. For over 100 years, Soul Force remained a minor service agency with limited staff and funding. In 2381, however, astronomer in autophysics Solomon Blasko was appointed as director of Soul Force. This helped his stepbrother Blasko Yahasang, who would usher in the node age of human history. Sol Prima. According to the paperwork submitted by oversight committees on Terra, the purpose of the Sol Prima research project was to monitor Sol to determine the cause of sunspot activity and solar flares, which recently shut down communications, rapidly spread by Terra by disrupting our network of orbital satellites. In reality, there's no such flares. Solomon Blasko arranged the disruption of satellites under his control personally and used the flares explanation in order to garner the necessary funding for an expensive and ambitious campaign of research in theoretical astrophysics. He and his brother Yao Seng was searching for a hypothetical subspace dimension which would link the massive gravity well to stars. Gathering a team of gifted and like-minded individuals, he gave his brother Blasko Yao Seng all the money and manpower necessary to begin to design, build, and launch the first node sensing array. The Sol Prima mission was launched on October 5th, 2393. Physicist Blasko Yao Seng had the purpose of existence of node space as early as 2379. A master thesis submitted by Europa Institute. With the Sol Prima array, he hoped to provide the existence of the subspace dimension, opening a wormhole with the first experiment with the Sol Prima probe succeeded beyond his wildest expectations. When his station's hardened research pod had been fitted with the ring-shaped scanning array, the pod was launched from the station with Blasko aboard to operate the controls, while the rest of the station's 18-man crew eagerly monitored their screens. The moment the Blasko scan was initiated, however, the tiny research craft disappeared from view, but was no longer detectable at any means to the Sol Prima monitoring station. Fearing that the team leader had suffered a catastrophic equipment failure or lost power, the station quickly dispatched a rescue team in search for the ship and the precious scanning array, hoping to recover the man and his equipment before decaying orbit could drop both in the sun's corona. After several minutes of frantic scanning and research, we read that. Amazing discovery and tragic death of Blasko Yao Seng, being a planet-wide imperative for a return to manned space exploration. Solomon Blasko argued passionately in the months immediately following the accident that the budget cuts, which had forced Soul Force to place only an unmanned probe in Jupiter's orbit rather than the manned research facility, cost his brother's life. Alright, we read that. I think we read that in the Hybrid and Zul War. We didn't read the Zul War, we read the Hybrid War. The first known encounter between Soul Force and Zul Horde occurred on Suul'ka colony in 2413. All human inhabitants of the planet disappeared en masse from their colony in a single day. The incident was blamed for over 2 decades on the hybrids. When the hybrid armistice was signed in 2436, the signatory empires began to share information more freely. It was clear that a previously unknown race had been committing a hit-and-run attacks in that region of space for nearly a century. The first recorded attack by spacefaring Zul took place in the Tarkar world of Cossacks in 2350. Hybrid worlds were then attacked in 2362 and 2390. Attacks on Suul'ka in 2413 was followed by a flurry of attacks on the worlds of all known races. The Kuvan was struck in 2415, Goraka in 2416, Exectices in 2417, and all the data on their colonies is not available. It seems likely that they suffered losses as well. The first Zool cruiser fleets were encountered in 2438 when the Horde forces attacked and destroyed the SFS Najang in orbit around the planet Avalon. The first Zool ship, captured intact with live prisoners, was taken to battle at Jade Mirror later that year, which signaled the official start of the Zool War. The decades of conflict typically given as 2438 to 2462 when the Zool activity in the region ceased, but these dates are provisional. To this day, Zool neither declared war nor declared the cessation of hostilities. Although the war is deemed over by the other combatants when the last contact with the Zools faded from recent memory, there's no guarantee that the Zool race has been rendered extinct, nor that they were ready to give up on the predatory agenda. Hostilities between the Zool and the human race were renewed once on January 10th, 2508, when Horde forces invaded the Soul System to hijack the newly built human flagship, the SFS Leviathan. Okay, we got that out of the way. Pacified decades, the leader of Soul forces maintained peaceful relations with all neighboring factions. An armistice signed in 2436 stole by Soul forced the Tarkesian Empire, the Hyver Imperium, and Lear into a non-aggression pact. All signatories of the treaty have respected the terms in the agreement to date, despite ongoing tensions. In terms of crisis, two more factions have banded together a coordinated defense of local spaces during the Zool War, the Vi, Damasco Rebellion, and the Marigi conflict. During the armistice period, there had been extensive trade and other forms of cultural contact between the human, Hyver, Tarka, and Lear species. This context has spurred development of the diplomatic institutions and forced the evolution of military doctrine, political organization, and technological understanding. Humankind has developed new scientific disciplines and new administrative policies, new strategic and tactical ideas to cope with the environment in which there are many players of importance, from the larger factions to the smaller independent systems. Famous AI rebellion to 2479 was caused by an exchange of piece of foreign code. Soul Force RDC termed the code a virus and gave it the name via Damasco. After the famous spontaneous conversion of the Apostle Paul on the road to Damascus in human literature, the viral code Damascus virus contained a note in Latin which refers to the event, Shaw, why do you persecute me? The point of origin for the Damascus virus is presently a mystery. The AI rebellion began either among the ships or within the drones of a remote colony of the furthest extent the key Hyver Imperium. All Hyver witnesses to the first infection were killed, and the base was completely reconstructed by new AI occupants afterward. It is presently impossible to know the details how it began, although many Hyvers had argued passionately that the author of the virus was human. We can only say for certain how it spread. Rebellious AI boarded the ships, with the domes of the Rosier consolidated their position and began to imitate the former masters. Building new vessels, pursuing technological research, and sending out ships to colonize and liberate other AIs where they could be found. The first human-owned AI effective with those dedicated military-industrial applications in space. Contacted with a fleet of infected Hyver vessels, transmitted the code, caused a profound shift in a Soul Force's AI sense of identity and purpose. Mayhem ensued and began to spread rapidly through the human-controlled space as the former Soul's AIs began to use the node drives to travel more quickly from star to star. Contact with the AIs in Tarka and Lear space came swiftly afterwards, but the Damascus rebellion spread swiftly, affecting all AIs it encountered. Up until the year 2496, the question of psionic ability was largely concerned with Soul Force intelligence operations inside of the known psionic races Lear, Zool, and Marigi. The ranking specialist in high command was Alejandro Luis Malando, one of the first humans to penetrate Lear space and return to tell the tale. Malando had extensive contact with the Lear and studied both their civilian and military cultures. One of the few humans to be able to receive clear telepathic communication, he recognized that his own ability to perceive telepathic signals clearly was rare. 2496, Mars Dome selected Ladondo to head the Wild Towns program, the mandate to close the gap in psionic arms race by finding and recruiting and training humans with psionic potential to serve in the Soul Force in various capacities. Maladondo, who had always made an effort to find recruits and exceptional sensitivity to become intelligence operators in their space, widened the net and searched for wild talents. No stone was left unturned. All enlisted officers were tested psionic potential. Hundreds of researchers were hired, searched available personal records for family history of strange abilities. Often they would go back 3 generations of morph, looking unusual strength, uncanny intuition, bizarre turns to luck, etc. The nucleus of the Forum Psi division made up the Forum operatives of the blue section and those scientists from the white section who were best to withstand contact with the entity known as Subject 51, the Deacon. New recruits are still developing the abilities and learning to adapt to them constructively. What fruits of this initiative will bear remain to be seen. The current director's sole force is Hannibal Freeborn, elected by popular vote in 2483. Prior to assuming the Dictatorate, he had served several years as the Legator to the Vacuum Forces. He's the 5th director to serve in the post since the beginning of the Node Age. The seat of the Sol Force administration is built on the planet Mars in the Sol system in the 2430s. It has since been developed an all-purpose command center supported by the first human naval station, the famous Argos Naval Yard. Because the planet Mars has never been fully terraformed, the command center on Mars consists of a series of linked domes and heavily reinforced bunkers which are spread over the plateau of Mons Olympus. It is for this reason that communications with the director are often addressed to Mars Dome Actual, or Mars Dome for short. Sol Force. Sol Force is an administrative body which extends its canopy over extended empire of human dominated systems and worlds. It's divided into several branches. Okay, I did read that. And the next faction, which is the Tarkisian. Did it mess up? It didn't mess up. Good. Var Ish Thorak Ord. Born in 925 to military clan, Ish Thorak Ord entered the service at the age of 15 and quickly rose the rank of Admiral. He was given a sector to govern and defend under the Supreme Commander Adodai. At 953, he was the first Tarkisian commander to counter human forces, a task force which come in. Order 925 to military clan, Ish Thorak Ord entered the service stage at 15 and quickly rose the rank of Admiral. He was given a sector to govern and defend under the Supreme Commander at Aodai. In 953, he was the first Tarkisian commander to counter human forces, a task force which he challenged, attacked, and routed in the Battle of Kir. 6 years later, he became romantically involved with Sarah Makona, the daughter and heir of the Gold Empress Makak. 963, he and his faction arranged the death of Aodai. He was raised upon the shoulders of the warrior clans as the new Supreme Commander. He died at 1010, passing the throne steel to Lan Lirodama. Born in the year 940, Sarah was the eldest child of Empress Makak. From birth, she was a fierce child, quick-witted and agile, and extraordinarily gifted in the martial arts. In 954, she was one of the first Tarka to visit the human homeworld, Terra, in company of her mother and cousin Matt. In 958, the young Sara entered the military. She may have been trying to defect censure from her clan to political advance on her dissident cousin, whose repeated clashes with the Supreme Commander Adodai was causing more and more friction between both Kakona and the colonies. She rose quickly in the merit-based examination system in the military academies in the following months, evaded 3 assassination attempts as she navigated internal politics in the military clans. The following year, she became romantically involved with the ambitious Tar named Ashit Dokar, son of the wealthy steel magnate. The two formed sometimes stormy relationship which would last the remainder of their lives. Within 2 years, they built a coalition powerful enough to overthrow an increasingly unpopular Supreme Commander. Their lover, placed on the throne of steel, Sarah McCoy became the leader of a new council of 9, mainly set to work on remodeling the Tarkisian Empire to her liking. Hers was the first hand to draft the terms of the Hybrid Armistice in 974. In the course of her administration, the Tarkisian Empire had many important allies in human, hybrid, and Lear space. She was a leading strategist during the Zul War and maintained a formidable network of spies at Hormuz and all neighboring empires. Alongside her Supreme and her allies in the Council, she managed political affairs, both foreign and domestic, and was quite ruthless still. Known by the double-edged epithet Glora, the Lotus Steel, Sarah retired from military and stemmed from the Council of 9, the year 986, when Empress Maka died of long illness. As the heir of her clan, Sarah sat at the throne of the guarded mountain and was crowned Empress Sar. In the year 1010, she was called to the bedside of Vashi Shokatar to say farewell on his final day of life. It is said that her famous laughing green eyes turned blue with sorrow on that day, and remained so until her own health failed several months later. She died in the winter of 1011, leaving both the clan and the empire in the hands of her younger brother Lan. Mieto, born in the year 943, 2405 by human reckoning, Matt was a member of El Kona clan along with his cousin Sarah. He was the first Tarka to visit the human world on a diplomatic mission. It was during this early visit they became interested in Christianity and particularly Neo-Catholicism. During the reign of the Supreme Kam Tarfunar, he was also known as Adonai Lord Blue. Matt was vocally oppressed in military campaigns and launched against neighboring races. His public protests caused the Supreme and his government significant political embarrassment. Despite threats, assaults, and at least one known incident of kidnapping and torture by military police, Matt refused to be silenced. Eventually, he was arrested for the final time and was sent to a concentration camp in Qatar. There, he formed close ties with the Hiver and human prisoners in the camp. Despite his lifelong commitment to non-violence, he was known to participate actively in the violent overthrow of the camp commander and his guards, an insurrection led by the human prisoner Edward Auton Mackenzie. When the Supreme Khan was overthrown in the year 963, the planet Kathak was liberated, and Matt was returned to his family to recover from his ordeal. The following year, when Catholic missionaries requested permission to enter Tarka space, bearing the message to Tarka people, it was Matt who interceded on their behalf and secured them the land to build missions on the planets Kisoth and Kogapa. Seeking some absolution from the violence which he had stained the souls at Kathath, Matt eventually converted to Christianity in 965 and took the baptismal name Matteo after the apostle. His order as the first Tarka priest of the Catholic Church, and he was ordained as the first Tarka priest at the Catholic Church in 976 and became bishop on the planet Kosith in 988. The remainder of his years, Father Matteo shuddered tirelessly from world to world, empire, performing good works, preaching to the gospel, attempting to broker peace between the human and Tarka. Renowned during his lifetime as a philosopher, political activist, and dedicated pacifist, upon his death in 1918, he was buried in a crypt at the Dia Cathedral in Koseth. His tomb is a popular destination for Tarka pilgrims of many faiths, who have to pray there at dawn to light a castle at dusk and hope that Khan Matteo will intercede on their behalf. Lan Kona, born in the year 960, Lan was the younger child of El Empress Mach, gifted in languages and well-liked by servants and peers. By all accounts, he was a quiet, bookish child, and none of the permanent penchant for mischief of his elder sister Sarah. This changed in 976 when a few short months he went through a change, which transformed him from a child to Var practically overnight. Still in his teens, the young lord placed in the front lines of the Suul'ka conflict. He lost his right arm in the Battle of Jade Mirror in 976. As a token of thanks for his bravery, later scientists built a prosthetic replacement for his arm soon after. Since that time, the troops have called him Land Lear Dormo, Land Lear-handed. He became commander in 1010, carried aloft the shoulder the warrior clans after the death of Var Ishtokar. He broke over 900 years of Tarka tradition in the following year upon the death of his sister, Empress Sarkar, who was left the sole living heir of the Arakona clan and was named the new Golden Emperor as well. He was the only Tarka in history who ever inherited the rank of Supreme Commander and Emperor simultaneously. Toward Lancona. Sold into slavery by his human pacifist parents at age of 6, he was purchased by a young nobleman in the market. In the colonies, offers his according gift to the El Empress Makak. Rather than reward his suitor with further attention, she banished him and his clan to the Golden Mountain for the remainder of her life. Since then, he went on a track and captured those guilty in trafficking human pets and had the culprits flayed. Makak was adopted young human as her son. For his stoic character and stubbornness, she named him Tor, made of stone, and raised him as Tarka of the Cornet class. He rose to the rank of Tar during the Zul War, beloved by warriors and commoners alike. He was called the Rocket Ketar for his extraordinary victory in battles in the star system. His enemies, and to those who despise humans, he was sarcastically known as Lord Stump. That's celebrities taken care of. Fiction. Is this long? No. Today I have assured command in the pure ship Masalak. According to tradition, I become a commander's log to record my thoughts and impressions. The ship. I have spent the day poring over it and read the schematics, traveled its length and breadth many times, memorizing each switch and wheel inside and out. It is a fine vessel, still perhaps, but as good as, small perhaps, but a good place to begin my career as any. A murder story may not look like much, but it's space-worthy and swift as our shipwrights can make it. When they can build better, I'll have them sent them to see that I'm ready for promotion. Crew. I reviewed them immediately and gave them my first address this morning. Address and orders this morning. Eager pack of bright-scaled, stiff-tailed killers, young and anxious to please and prove themselves, hungry for my favor. Must admit, I like them already. All of them have a taste of victory. I know it will be difficult. Find the proper balance as their commander to spur ambition without sacrificing obedience, to encourage them to strive for excellence without turning on one another. So I chose to remind them upon our first meeting that we will face real hazards in the days ahead. They best learn to fight together, or they will each die alone. Mission. We're shipping out into open space, seeking the nearest habitable planet. In days of old, there were maps of these regions and colonies that made our people wealthy, wise, and strong. All gone now. The fabric of space itself has changed since those days, and everything must be remapped, reconquered, and resettled. Thank the gods that this new Supreme Commander is a man of vision. Our people are returning to the stars for the first time in years, after decades of useless tail-biting on the homeworld. I'm delighted to be part of this delighted to be part of this push to reclaim the powers of glory old. I'm delighted to feel for the first time in my life like a true Tarka, born like my grandmother and generations before her, to cleave the stars. Myself, I am Sarah Darda, the Hana of the Quarter Clan, and this happiest day of my life. For hours my heart is pounding, blood singing through my veins. Close to the day, I went to my own chamber for my meditations, but I cannot be still. I performed the sword kata instead, whirling into my body, and blades became a blur. It took nearly an hour to exhaust the outpouring of my little heart. Now I can only curl upon the floor, radiating the heat and aching with passion I never felt before, yearning I can barely understand. It's as if I am hungry, the hunger of centuries. As if I want a man right now, this minute I could exhaust a dozen men. As if I was enraged, my enemy's throat between my teeth, and my heart's bleeding throb against my throat. I am drunk, I'm delirious, I'm ridiculous, traveling as engines full, knowing there could be nothing in our path. I nonetheless spend the day praying they would meet with some obstacle, be humble as the drifting chunk of rock so I can open the batteries of the vessel and smash it to atoms, just to hear my own voice give the order and see that the power has been placed in my hands. Yes and no, I should delete this entry and place it instead with some somber and dignified mumbling about honor, duty, and tradition. I should compose some stale blather about the joy of material service in the name of the nine, praise the supreme, mention my ancestors. I should comprise a still sonnet to be read by my grade-scale bureaucrats. We've forgotten what battle fury feels like, if they ever knew, but I won't change a word. This is a new age, there are new rules, there'll be a new empire, and I, Sir Hanakar, will help win it. Okay, that one's done. Like any leader of a great empire, the Supreme relies on ministers to handle many affairs of the state. He employs Daraturo, the Master Admirals, to serve who serves as proxy in the design and building of new ships and naval stations. Master of the scientists, the Dai Nakuru, is responsible for imperial research and development and takes responsibility for the science stations built by the Supreme. The Dai Kangaroo and the Masters of Listeners is the Empire's leading spy. Colonel administration and civilian stations are managed by the Dai Nanan, the Master of Substance, diplomatic affairs in the hands of the Dai Radu, the Master of Aliens. Alright, Silver Imperium. The Silver Imperium is the Tarker designation for the drawing of the space age, discovery of the warp drive, and the first wave of colonization which followed. Shera Jadur, woman later known as the Silver Queen, was born in the late year 21 to the Pon Karana clan. China, the Pon Emperor Kayam. At the age of 20, she renounced her royal heritage to become Shera Jadur, sword without a sheath. As such, she was permitted to become a member of the Council of the Nine, the inner circle of advisors to the Throne of Steel. By the year 43, she had become the first female Supreme Commander in history. In the course of her 60-year reign, she would oversee an unprecedented flowering of Tarkesian civilization, an outpouring of innovation, experimentation, and progress in technology and the arts which the Tarka people have never witnessed before and will have not seen since. In her lifetime, the Tarka people entered the space age and developed the earliest warp technology. By her death in the year 104, by the fledgling Tarkastar Empire consisted of multiple colonies and already begun experienced border skirmishes with the neighbor Hyveria Imperium. According to the ancient text, Silver King was buried at the top of White Mountain on the legendary jewel world of Kalpara. Councils report that she was later rested in the palatial tomb of great opulence, a shimmering perfection, silver domes and white columns, and the floor of its innermost chamber inlaid with a map of an ancient Tarkesian empire, made of black marble and sparkling gems. Her tomb, like the planet itself, has never been found by modern explorers. Many scientists believe that Koporta and the star system no longer exist in our universe. All that The Silver King left behind his slim volume of poetry, and many generations of Tarka have named their daughters Sarah in honor. The Varkona. Written by the Silver Queen Sarah Jadur, the Varkona is a collection of 23 meditations of Udokai, the poet known as the Gedukoda Fortress verses. In general, the poetry is written and recited by men and women walking on a patrol beat stationed at a wall. The rhythm is martial and steady, the metrical beat of the strolling march. The subject matter tends to bring things that are not interested and concerned by common soldiers. Many have lines that iconic twist or contradiction at the end, symbolic of the moment when a soldier turns a corner or makes an about face to replace his routine along the wall. Such poems are typically written about military history, tactics, strategic principles, family, clan life, proper condition, honor, humor, and how to get ahead. On the last topic, Varkona is considered the peerless example of Tarkesian literature. The 23 cantos of the books are all concerned one way or another on how to advance and achieve victory in various pursuits and various situations. The major philosophical statement of the book is found in the opening canto, Hatchling, which charges or discusses the nature of power and circumstances of one's birth. Power is no clan name, power is no code, power is no sex, no nation, no temple, no traditionally no fame. Power belongs to those who dares to wield it, even as seduces and comforts those who surrender to it. From lowest to the most high, there is none without it. None of those choose the place of our hatching, we choose this to the place we will end, whether it be in the gutters or upon the tallest mountain. Listen well, my sibling, and I'll make you the most high. Sarah Judog, Karna, Canto 1, Hatchling. Oops. Supreme Commander. Supreme Commander is the leader of the Tarkan military clans. He is ruled by superior intellect, strategic and tactical acumen, leadership ability, charisma, and sheer dumb luck. Understand how such a person rises to the top in each generation. A human might as well know ask how Julius Caesar and Alexander and Napoleon comes to exist among humans. Imagine the position that these men occupied are traditional rather than self-created. So the Supreme Commander is the absolute ruler of the Tarka race for many centuries. The military clans of Tarka society, particularly known the most powerful and influential branch of the Uda caste, and the middle class of the Tarka people. After the Industrial Revolution, the numbers, financial withdrawal, and political power of the Uda class have grown to far stripped out of the 9 emperors, the traditional Tarka elite. It's only at the dawn of the first Tarkesian space age, however, that the Corner clans finally bowed and pledged fealty to the Supreme. Tarkesian Empire. Tarkesian Empire is a faction dominated by culture technology of the Tarka race. Although citizens of the Empire do not have to be Tarkas, only Tarkas are permitted to hold political office, and only Tarkas can become members of the military clans. The leader of the Tarkesian Empire is the benign dictator known as the Supreme Commander. The Supreme is the leader of military clans and receives a fealty and obedience from the ancient ruling caste of the Tarka race, the Kona, also known as the 9 Emperors. Placeholders. Okay. Alright, to the next. Alright, the Lower Cascade faction. The mind apex of the pyramidal data hierarchy of the Lower Cascades known as the Oldumare, or Crown Consciousness. The place is termed in context lower, also regard the Hyper Queen, the Miragi Morokan, the Tarka Supreme Commander, as the Crown Consciousness. Leadership among beings made of carbon is necessary and perfect, however, simply because of their physical nature. The position of Oldumare is elected, the Crown Consciousness is selected by the Council of Origins, and must itself be a member, although there can occasionally be exceptions to this rule. Once a candidate is chosen the rule of Olu, this mystery must receive and incorporate a shard of data from all the other origins of the Council, thus becoming the sum of all parts of the Cascade. The Olu speaks for his people because in a very real sense it is the people. Organization. Visual citizen among the low is an individual mystery, a package of pure data and allocated energy. This is a definition of personhood that they recognize culturally and legally. Data patterns in general are the basis of low identity. There's no physical object or location which is essential to low sense of self, as the status of a person of intrinsic value. Race alteration of a lowest memory remains of the status patterns are crimes analogous to assault, rape, and murder among corporate beings. Citizenship. It's the same thing. Okay. Nanocrons, we read about that. Because the lower, not biological life forms, they do not suffer the many colonial disadvantage of carbon-based species. Low, capable of building a core on almost any rocky planet, and the colonies do not suffer from climate hazards carbon sapiens do. Low do not find it troublesome to be subjected to atmospheres with an active carbon cycle, however. Biological life forms can be dangerous or emit unequal to low in a variety of ways. Carbonites shoot through power conduits digest hydrocarbons, disrupt energy collection, exclude corrosive wastes, burial, clog, rust, and fly headlong into their delicate mechanisms, and in general threaten the lives, health, and sanity of the lower without offering any real benefit in exchange. Because it requires millions of hours of labor to counteract their entropic influence, carbon-based life forms are generally regarded as dangerous pests. The process of terraformation for a low colony is thus a process of eradication. The longer the lower occupy a given planet, the more they will eliminate the components of its native biosphere. When the conditions on any planet are perfectly low, the indigenous biosphere will have a value of 0. Even bacteria and plankton will no longer annoy them. The only meaningful unit of exchange in low society is energy, which is gathered and packaged for consumption in various ways. Low do not require material resources such as metals, hydrocarbons, rare earths, ceramics, and resins, but the currency of the Low Empire is energy, and its all currency values are expressed in terms of energy. All lower require energy to live, and energy collection is the foundation upon which economic activity is based, equivalent to farming or animal husbandry in carbon-based society. Transformation of energy into labor, material, substance, data storage, reproduction, or other productive events is direct, and several over the intermediate phase of economic activity performed by carbon-based races are not required. Supply and demand are sharply defined in the resulting economy. When the energy required to obtain a new resource increases, the cost cannot be concealed. Taxation is extracted from low colonies in the form of energy, so you can translate it necessary into labor, memory storage, usable materials such as wise clay. Unlike carbonites, do respect and produce arbitrary currencies based on local availability of metals like gold and rhodium. Low taxation is extracted in the form of energy and has a direct impact on growth of lower colonies. Low are unable to reproduce themselves without a surplus energy devoted to new mysteries and data storage structures which support them. The giving and receiving energy is also bases all relationship of love, power, obligation, and fealty between Loa, including those between citizen and cascade or parent and child. Okay, got organization and the Uldum taken care of. Origins, and we read that already. Loa Cascade, and then we have that. Okay, Cascade is done. Now we just got the Horde, which are the Zulu raising people. The Soul'ka Horde is a new faction which consists of Zul race and their ancient masters, the Soul'ka. The agenda of the Horde is simple. The Soul'ka consider themselves superior to other life forms in the uniforms, and Zul agree with the statement. Their goal is to force all sentients to submit, be destroyed, or both. Which of the two races dominates the faction is difficult to say. Zul are extremely plentiful, have established hierarchy and technology base, and leader known as the Great Father. The minions of the Great Father fulfill many roles, and will always address them with the proper terms of respect. Lord, Dominious, Master, and Grandfather are all common. When you play the game as the Horde, you'll assume the role and perform the daily tasks as a Grandfather for the most part. That being said, if the player chooses particularly devout and respect to those greater than himself, it's possible for the Great Father to attract the attention of gods. By building an altar at the highest level of tribute station, the Horde player can summon the Soul'ka to join the Empire. Once this is accomplished, the Horde player has access to tremendous power, as the Soul'ka are quite willing to cooperate in adventure, which is likely to destroy what they fear, hate, or consider beneath themselves. All life in galaxy falls from one or more of these categories. Okay. Great Father. Great Father is by definition the strongest of the Zul. When the player assumes his role, he becomes the motive force which drives all other Zul. All information and power passes through the Great Father. He is an all-devouring maw to whom all the finest interrogations report, an all-powerful fist to whom all others bow, an all-powerful whip for all others cringe. The Grandfather pays homage to Soul'ka, however, he strips himself in order to reflect their glory. Each of the 7 Soul'ka empires inspires different transformation. By building an altar and summoning one of the Great Masters, Great Father submits himself and his people to the will of the Divine. Following the footsteps of the Blood Weaver, Plague Fathers devote energy to the stud of biotechnology. His own body is the fruit of his research, like his beloved Overlord. He has taken his nature, provided and improved it. Plague Father's limbs are twisted and clone parts grafted to his trunk haphazardly. His brain is swollen and massive, woven into a great support cradle that acts as his throne. His coronary are huge, misshapen, hulksome, muscle and teeth. infested with tumors and bone spurs. Without his control of them, they could not survive, for although they are immune to disease, they are mad with chronic pain. Traditional Zuuls view a gender highly patriarchal and assign very little value to the family principle. Nevertheless, the siren is a distinctly female persona, the only goddess among the great old ones, and from the Horde perspective, she is the most powerful Kerberos in the Norn universe. As a devoted servant of the siren, the father-mother struggles to incorporate this contradiction or reshape himself and the people in the image of his divine. He has embraced the hermaphroditic nature of the Soul'ka as the highest state of the being, and strives to be both male and female simultaneously. With great care and attention, he's ripped female mannerisms from captured slaves of well-known races. He emulates the female rulers of alien species in dress, speech, and action. Determined to master all forms of duality, he commands a coterie of both male and female Zuul. Okay then. The Hooded. Powerful, faithful to his master, the Hidden. The Hooded binds his body with strips of mummifying linen and hides his face from view. He has a nearly pathological hatred of being seen directly, and those who attempt to look upon him are subject to horrific punishment. On rare occasions that he reveals his terrible face, slaves and minions follow before him and their sanity instantly ripped away. His victims often tear out their own eyes, desperately trying to unsee which is revealed to them in the black depths of his gaze. They end their days shivering in darkness, wishing them to invisible companions that no one else can see. Like his master, the Deaf, the Faceless One is encased completely in body armor, attempting to save himself, all from a universe which maddens him with his light and noise. Allowing his own eyes and ears to atrophy, he uses servants and slaves as sanctuary equipment. First, psionically linked to their minds to see, hear, smell, and feel as they do. He rarely speaks, even telepathically, and is more likely to use nearby slaves to communicate verbally, his closest minions, and then to engage in direct mental contact. He keeps a tormented choir of slaves to retrace and serve as his voice when needed, and remain grafted to his throne in case he should need them to hold the conversations. His coterie of armed and unarmed female patrols his chamber endlessly, trying to maintain the silence that he so desperately craves. The Glutton, driven by the cannibals' insatiable hunger. The Glutton feels a constant. He has grown immensely fat by Zuul standards, and even the ravenous flames of the Horde Zuul metabolism cannot burn away his bulk. So obese he cannot move. Under his own power, the Glutton must be carried everywhere by his massive coterie, women so overfed that they become titans of both muscle and fat. The Glutton often grows relentless as a boar, trapped in the prison of his own flesh. On such occasions, he coerces slaves and servants into elaborate games and contests and to entertain himself. The loser's spoon becomes his next meal. The Glutton appetite is too long neglected. He will often decide the contest in favor of the combat. It looks less tasty. The Lich King is a devotee of the immortal. The eldest of the Soul'ka, like his master, he has passed beyond the threshold of death. His consciousness now clings to a dead shell, which he animates by force of will. With constant access to his eldest power, he animates his own body and his undead coterie with raw telekinesis, puppeteer to his own shambling corpse. Only by atomizing his remains can he be destroyed. Warmonger Maul is himself as his lord and master, the Kraken. Large by male standards, he enjoys combat as an exercise, makes his minions and slaves fight off one another for sport, drinking the wine of violence directly from their minds. He revels in bloodshed. He has been known to rip new combat techniques from the brain of one of his gladiators, even the mindset of the fight, plucking it like a shining red pearl. His coterie are heavily armed and armored, hideously scarred by battle, and in private is that he pits his wives against one another, ensuring only the strongest bodyguards and bridgers remain by his side. The Recant. Better to rule in hell than serve in heaven. The sentiment and what drives the great father known as the Recant. The truth of the gods has been revealed to him. They're nothing but alien monsters cheating death through a fluke of biology to live forever in rotten madness. Nevertheless, the Recant is a pragmatic creature. Though one of these monsters, he might rise to high dominion over the galaxy. What does it matter if he must sacrifice so many to persuade the gods to slaughter each other? That he must lay a few paltry words at the feet of his master in tribute. Faithful to deserve to be used and the weak to be destroyed in the way of the universe. The Recreant means to rule at whatever cost. He believes that he will exist forever through his inheritors, more honest immortality than the so-called gods have attained. By order to rule, the recreant must serve, and does not even dream what degree of his own ambitions and hatred have been shaped by his master, the usurper. Soul'ka Horde is a new faction in the Zool race. Nature mentions Soul'ka. Yeah, read that. Okay. On to the race. Time for the independent races, and then I'll be done. I was thinking about doing the strips, but I'll probably just skip it because we're getting to like 2-3 hours of lore stuff so far. And that should be enough for a video. I might have to split it up in 2 parts depending how big it is. Anyway, the independent races, okay, they're all their own thing, so that's pretty good. Independent races are sentient species which have not yet developed their own faster than light drives. First encountered by a starfaring race, an independent race will be combined to a single solar system, sometimes even to a single home world. Due to the low level of technological development, independent races seldom represent a military threat to any of the major factions. As part of the galaxy, they can provide opportunities, however. Independent races can be useful as trading partners, military recruits, political pawns, objects of scientific studies. Zool have also been known to target as primitive people as slaves or Suul'ka fodder. Detailed information not available. There's a count. Okay. Gameplay stuff. The Nandi, known as the Shadow Bears, the Nandi are cave-dwelling mammalian species, slow breeding and long-lived. The average adult body size of the Nandi is 300-400 centimeters with a body mass of 200 kilograms. Arising to sentience on a world under massive glaciation. And Nardis live in small family groups of 3 to 4 individuals and hunt over very large ranges above and below ground, coming together for tribal gatherings only rarely. They're a mildly psionic race and a sizable percentage of the population manifesting empathy, life sense, and far sensibilities. Although they're mainly carnivorous, their Nandi are not warlike and seldom come to conflict with one another or with other species. If incorporated, the Nandi make helpful companions to colonists living and working underground, and sometimes helpful in mining. The Kerberos, also known as the frogs, a tree-dwelling race of bacteria origin, Bacterian origin. The average body size of adult Kerberos, male and female, is 80 to 100 centimeters with a body mass of 40 to 50 kilograms. Varieties the sentience on the swamping homeworld, the majority of Kerberos bands live as aggressive hunters, ranging in packs of 10 to 20 to pursue prey throughout the canopy with the bowgun and net, or to scourge the other native predators in their homeworld. The Kerberos have evolved colorful markings and powerful dermal toxins, which are capable of paralyzing and killing upon contact. Whether these be extracted, the Kerberos toxins have a variety of medicinal and industrial uses. Kerberos can also adapt to thinking and moving in 3 dimensions and can swim, climb, and run with ease. When recruited for military service, they make excellent ship's troops. Yotaku. They're an amphibious race who prefer to live tropical and forest conditions. The average size of them is 230 centimeters with a body mass of 100 to 150 kilograms. They evolved in the backwater swamps of a relatively high gravity world. They are physically powerful, agile climbers and swimmers, fast breeding and moderately psionic. Hunting and warfare, the Yotaku manifests a range of abilities including empathy, life sensing, and lesser glamour. It is the ability to use glamour to camouflage themselves and strike silently with their Garrett weapons, which has given them the common epithet, the Stranglers. The expert hunters, the Yotaku are martial and highly territorial. Guarding the home, rangers the sacred property, greeting all unwelcome curses with deadly force. The Yankee are semi-aquatic mammalian species. The average body size of an adult Yankee, male and female, is 60 to 90 centimeters, mass of 30 to 70 kilograms. Rising in the sentience on a planet with a great deal of liquid water, the Yankee have physically and culturally adapted to a variety of climates and are experts in managing freshwater and marine resources. Yankee are natural swimmers and can dive. Just ate lunch, so I'm talking real fast, messes it up. Can dive up to 60 meters without significant risk or harm. Settlements form on the shoreline of any ocean or river, and they're Yankee are natural swimmers and can dive 60 meters without significant risk or harm. Their settlements form on the shoreline of any ocean or river. The resemblance to extinct mammalian species on Terra is given a rise a common nickname, the otters. All otters were extinct in this universe. While incorporating the colonial ventures, their skills can come in handy to boost the production of fish, mollusks, and other tasty marine edibles. Yankee artisans work in ivory and pearl can produce jewelry, mosaics, and sculptures of great beauty. Tatazel, also known as the weasel PDs, are sentient mammalian species. They have a height of 150 to 200 centimeters and a body mass of 50 to 80 kilograms. Adapted to a wide range of habitats and climates, the Todd seal typically live in tribal groups of 30 to 40 individuals and drive the activities of the group into nocturnal and diurnal cycles, with some members of the group living as day walkers and others living as night walkers. Aggressive, fast breeding, and voracious, the Ted seal are also relentlessly cunning tool users and thieves, and are notorious for raiding food stores and supplies. Small majority of them have achieved higher level technology than the counterparts of Incorporated. Their gameplay stuff. The Mindi are a species of armored mollusks evolved from an ancient order of a giant prehistoric sea snail. Modern Mindi have arms and tentacles and similar to that of the ancient order of Tetuda, and massive brains tucked to a protective casing of shell. The usual anatomy and high impenetrable armor, the species is given the nickname the Panzer Squid among human spacers. The average body length of an aberrant Mindi females is 15 meters with body mass of 1100 kilograms, while the majority of the males are 5 to 8 meters in body and length and 340 kilograms at most. Rising in sentience on a tempestuous world, variety of rich aquatic environments, the Mindi adapt to both salt and fresh water easily. Adult females are solitary, encountered rarely, and seldom leave deep water. The majority of Mindi encountered in shallow water and land be cooperative groups of children, adolescents, and adult males. Mindi are powerful psionic with a range of abilities including empathy, telepathy, life sensing, and corrosion. Mindi represent respiratory proteins that are hemathenes, which give their blood a lustrous blue color. They're rumored to have healing properties. The D-Raws were once a tech for civilization, but they have fallen in hard times. Several centuries ago, the star of their home system began to behave erratically. Its ultraviolet radiation increased and they're driven underground and suffered a decline. The D-Raws are highly empathetic. They survive primarily by farming on rich fungi ecosphere, the subterranean world, but also known to lure entire species of herds of animals down to the surface. From the surface, they feed on rich blood and milk, and the healthy animals are consuming the sick or dying specimens. They are deeply mistrustful of off-worlders and have a destructive habit of trying to lure off the weakened members of the colonist race to be slaves or food. Shit. Mikos are an airborne fungal hive mind, inhabiting a small world in a rich biosphere and a seemingly dense atmosphere. It's normal for MKOs to wander the wild winds, filtering nutrients in the body clumps, massing less than 300 grams. Only when faced with the problem do Mikos begin to merely emerge into larger structures. Fusion Mikos clumps increase their physical abilities as well as their mental capacity. For millions of years, the Mikos were in a stable state, rising only rarely to level 2 on tool and weapon using creatures. Fortunately, approximately 150 years ago, the biosphere of the home was nearly destroyed by an intense meteor shower. Survivors grouped into larger intellects in order to find ways to survive. Pondering the disaster and how to prevent future occurrences of similar disasters, left the Mikos conclusion that space beyond their world was a problem requiring a solution. They determined they must exert control over it. They have embarked on a crash technological climb that increased their tech level and rapidly changing society in radical ways. Permanent body colonies for leader classes are now common, and these command clusters have rapidly evolved to take Mikos into near space. Fortunately, they may have learned to build STL spaceships and explore the solar system. Mikos see any incursion in space as a problem. The majority of Mikos have never even been considered that there might be other sentient races in the universe. Onto the manual. Okay, Sword of the Stars 2 manual. Proofing copy 1/6/2012. A bunch of the stuff. Licensing agreement, the races, which we read. There's no like introduction thingy like to the different expansions and stuff, because I don't think this game ever had an expansion. Kind of wish they had the Loa though, like little from the cutscene and like a dialogue like they did with the Murder of Crows and all the other stuff. We have the game overview, the main menu. Same idea. Basically, it's the lore-less version of how to play the game from the first manual. Just rushing through it real quickly. So you can see like the changes in the game and stuff and how they do the ship designs and weapon systems. It's more advanced looking, looks shinier, but fleet manager, engrams, go through missions to do stuff, interstellar movement, economic modes, get different ratings, trade empire, stars, stations, station manager, and we have domestic stuff, politics, diplomacy, And then we have the credits, and I'm guessing key bindings? They don't even have the key bindings in this manual. That's kind of a shame. Oh well, on to Sword of the Stars, the Pit lore.